Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 97 of the Simpa Life Podcast. We are 3 away from our first century. I still don't know if we're going to have for 100, so please do drop us some more suggestions in the comments below. That's why I reach out to some more people. You know me, I do want to make this, quite a milestone. So I do want it to be somebody quite... I don't want to say sort of big as in like celebrity or sort of, within their own ego, but I mean somebody that would be, a real meaningful conversation. I really want to have a good couple of hours. Obviously, celebrate the fact that we've done 100 episodes, which is something I never thought we'd achieve. I say we, the royal we here of the Simpa Life, which is still just me and a couple of mates that help me out on the weekends. But yeah, so do hit us up with some suggestions below. And yeah, we've got some wicked guests coming after the century, because unfortunately the big name people that I've already booked in, they're like 105, 108 in terms of episode numbers. So do wait around for them, because they're going to be spectacular, as is why every guest, including this one and this week. There you go. There's your loose segue and transition into introduction for today's guest, who is now the first guest on the Simpa Life to join the Three Timers Club. We're going to do a whole Saturday Night Live thing here. You're not going to get a jacket, so don't worry about it, as in a clothing jacket to wear. Just to clarify that for all my northern and more sinister-minded individuals there. But yeah, moving on, today's guest is a formulation chemist with, I suppose now, getting to be quite a few years, over 20 years experience in the UK hydroponics industry. The regular contributor to, hey, that wasn't bad. That was good. That was good. I'm showing you notoriety in your experience. Wisdom, yeah. Over 20 years wisdom in the UK hydroponics industry, regular contributor and to publications and research papers. They are a respected cannabis scientist, director of Aqualabs, and the executive director and scientific lead of Medcan Sport. They are Dr. Callie Seaman. How are you doing?
Not bad, mate. How about you, Sen?
All right. I'm slightly hyper, as that intro probably alluded to. But yeah, I'm good.
Do you know who would have made a good one for you 100? Someone like Howard Marks. But
yeah,
rest his soul. But no, you do. You want some special, an interesting conversation. Maybe it's one outside the box. Something really kind of out there, like the Prime Minister.
Which one? We're going to end up with another one next week. Then there'll be another one the week after. Be hard to tell. We might have another one actually by the time this bloody podcast comes out the rate that they're getting rid of them. Interesting that I have been looking at sort of alternative economists, sort of political commentators that are kind of on the fringe, that, maybe do or have dabbled in cannabis and other drugs in the past, and sort of have an understanding of this sort of large unrepresented culture that we find ourselves to be a part of. But also are part of the mainstream enough to be able to have that conversation about the intersectionality and the crossover between, well, I was going to say our worlds, our cultures, our society,
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. But yeah, there's going to be a search, mate, for you. That is definitely going to be a search. And it's getting something that's not going to be a bit monotonal, or they already have been kind of briefed on what they can say, or almost got a script where they're sat there and it's not a natural conversation. You want something that is flowing. You want something that is interesting to your viewers as well.
Oh, entirely, yeah. You mustn't forget there are people that actually do enjoy this podcast week to week. So yeah, obviously we want to make it the best sort of recording possible. But yeah, as you say, I don't want to have the same conversations. I'm not saying that I have the same conversations, because every conversation is different, but I want to get more voices involved, because I'm on a reading binge at the minute, as I was talking with Connor last week. And so I'm really in a receiving mindset for knowledge and for information. So I really want to have these more difficult conversations. So actually, one of the names that came up last week was Peter Hitchens, of all people. So probably not even going to respond to my email when I do reach out to him, probably next week. But we'll see, because I do want some prohibitionists. I do want some people who have made a career being anti-cannabis. Especially at this point in time, because the way that they've done it means they must be articulate, they must be of a certain ilk of an intellect, that they're capable of manipulating people. If we know the science is playing here, so if they can actually still be represented, I think it would be good, even just personally, I think just to maybe sharpen my own skills,
Well, yeah, and then you're getting a full perspective. You're getting every single perspective as opposed to just one kind of narrow-minded, the same echo chamber, the same conversations coming out. That yes, we all love cannabis. Yes, we do, but that conversation is when it's repetitive, gets a bit boring. You're not. Mm-hmm. You're not reaching that larger audience. You're not taking the conversation further. It's just that same echo chamber time and time again. And I think, I don't know what you've now started doing with your social media, instead of putting the word cannabis, so that you're not getting shadow banned, or posts are just not even getting anywhere near, people seeing them. I've had to start putting dots in it. I've had to start sort of calling the plant that must not be named, just to get past these kinds of things in order to actually be heard anymore. But we have got to get outside that echo chamber. And you're a bit more of a broader thing than just cannabis. You are drugs as a whole. You are looking at the actual effects of drugs on society from all kinds of perspectives.
Yeah, sorry, just some flushed in my brain there. Actually, we've done a few. Anastasia Ryan, sex workers reform. So we talked about sort of legalization of sex workers and how that'd be regulated. Tom Curran, Right to Die campaigner. So we talked about sort of assisted suicide and things like that. And again, there's an incredible crossover in speaking with these people. So it was something I was a little bit worried. I suppose, actually, no, maybe less so with them too, but in some of the conversations I've had with others that don't necessarily come from our world, so they don't either have firsthand experience with drugs and drug culture, or they maybe have just sort of, I don't know, got that kind of that empathy and that ability to sort of to understand it, and they're able to sit and have a much larger conversation. And I think by nature of a format of a podcast, you're kind of forced into agreeing with another person, especially the fact that we keep the video on this, because then if you respect each other through your body language, so you observe each other, you can go, oh, you're interested in this, all right, you're not listening to me, or so you kind of have to be engaged. And I think honestly, as I've said infinitum on this, the discourse is what's going to change the world, is us being able to debate and discuss things and find the little, shine a light into the little corners and find the little bits that we haven't really brought to light previously. So yeah, it's one of the things I'm proud of, I suppose, with the podcast, is that we've diversified it so much, but trying to now get that bit further, because as you say, the limitations now of sort of shadow banning on social media platforms. I mean, I've just gone, nah, fuck it, hell for leather since day one. Here's the correct language. Here's how I'm going to do it. Facebook have now backed off, really. It used to be kind of my sign out Monday. I used to post a screenshot video of, I'd post a podcast on a Monday, I'd then get signed out of Facebook, and then it would send the verification code. And by the time I got the verification code, it cancelled it. So then I couldn't sign in. So you're just going through and just getting text message after text message verification code on the app, because obviously it's easy to share. And then they took away my share button. We had this whole back and forth, and it's weird. There seems to be peaks and troughs. Actually, back on my Instagram, for my Explorer for You, whatever we call it, page on Instagram, that's now filled back up with cannabis posts, predominantly obviously from legal regions around the world. But yeah, it's very much a difficult thing. I've just started moving the first dozen episodes onto Rumble, which are claiming to be non-censorship. They're stating that as long as it's basically not sort of child porn, violence, etc., then they're happy to host it. So I think trying to get out of this limited avenue that we've kind of been forced into of going, well, this is the social media channel, this is your accepted conversations you can have in society. I mean, we've already blown them up in the real world. You know, most people that represent cannabis wouldn't dare think to censor it when speaking to someone face to face. But yeah, we've been trained now into this kind of self-censorship to go, oh, I best not, because I want to get my reach there. But then it's not putting that name out there. It's not giving that word, because there's still a huge part of the population that don't know what plant you're on about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you say that.
Yeah, and you're right. And well, we shouldn't have to do it, but it's, I think what as well with the reach of the whole social media thing, it is an addiction. I think we've spoke about this as well previously, that the fact that it turns into something you look to for a quick fix, a quick, joy release, a quick, and when you're not getting that because you're posting about this plant, it makes you want to give up as well. So are they achieving what they're wanting? Is the tactics actually working? Because I've backed right away from social media, really just gone, and why am I putting all this effort into it when I'm addicted to it. I'm it's you go to it, and I think you mentioned before you went into the woods as well that you were finding that you were just scrolling through your phone and just not actually looking at it, not really taking it in, but it was like smoking.
Yeah,
it was you wanted the habit.
Yeah,
constantly.
Yeah, 100%. And it's weird though, because unlike say smoking, you've got to go and buy the cigarettes, and like alcohol, you've got to go and buy you've got to go to a place, whereas we carry around the little addiction machine in your pocket for any given moment. And again, I'll hold my hand up. I'm still probably finding it problematic. I'll stand in a queue, you've got 2 minutes, and it's just you quickly swing to it, and there's nothing that you can actually really achieve in that moment. That you could send a meaningful message, you could have a meaningful interaction, or learn something like that would truly positively affect your life. I mean, we've known for a long time the negative bias of the social media algorithms. So just on a statistics and probability alone, you opening that phone to a platform, it's probably going to piss you off because they know that that'll engage you more. So all we're doing is just going, and we're just we're biohacking ourselves with a little bit of dopamine and whatever else, but with rage, we're what's the word? Wiring these two things together. Of the rage then feels good. I'm outraged at this thing. So then when you can surrogate and take away the phone, you're still then with that rage. And so then you find it when you're in the car, when you're walking down the street, because you almost look for that. It's righteous. You shouting at that guy in the street is the same as you self-righteously posting a post on Facebook and people liking it. Yeah. So it becomes a toxic behavior in the real world, not just in sort of online. You're already seeing this is a lovely trend actually on Instagram of Instagram versus reality, and it's all the beauty hotspots around the world. And so it's people doing I'm the one person walking through this canyon, and the turn around, it's like 50 people queuing up, waiting for their turn. And it's like, where was it? There's a cliff in Norway that's had 1,000% increase in tourism. And it's because you can do like a fake hang off the cliff and you get a picture from an angle and it looks like you're hanging off the cliff. And it's not, there's a little thing there. You're safe. You're perfectly fine. But people queue up, go out there. I mean, to the point of it's good for the locals, I suppose, because then you've got restaurants, hotels and infrastructure being built and all the rest of it. But people are then going for an experience that isn't even an experience. Exactly that. It's they're creating the experience for you to show that you had an experience. I saw an advert. There's a dead lovely northern lassie, and she's got some, I think, TikTok or whatever it is, or it's on many platforms. Obviously, the reels are shared all over the fucking place. And she does reviews of northeast places. And so there's this thing opened up called Psychopath, and it's like a horror style experience. So you go but they've put it's loads of food and alcohol in the center, and then you go and ride some rides, and there's like a haunted house or whatever. And then even on her video for it, advertising and showing it, all the people are just there with their phones. There's no one is actually experiencing it. So they've gone there, just go, this will be good content. So people are not going, this will be a good experience. They go, hey, darling, do you want to go out tonight? Where are we going? Well, this is Halloween thing. What's it going to be like? It'll be good content.
Have you been to a gig lately? I cannot go to gigs anymore. Because there is just phones everywhere. And you're still like, I can't see them because you got your phone in the way. Put it down and enjoy the music. And that's what it was. Prodigy was full of it. And I was guilty as well, took a photo. But then it's like, you're not in the moment. You're not enjoying the energy. You're not enjoying being part of it. And I do feel sorry for this generation coming because they didn't have what we had with no mobile phone. I didn't have a mobile till I was 20. So I was going, oh, have you lost sound? Now can't hear you. Is he pussycat? No, you're still not there, mate.
Check.
I can hear you.
Hey.
No. Yep. No. Yeah. Oh, have I got my thing up here?
Is that working?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, it wasn't currently my cat, but previously, yeah. As you can probably tell here, folks, there's a lovely wooden bed here with a nice crocheted blanket in for him, but he's taken the habit of sleeping at the pile of cables at the bottom of my feet. I think my sound's just gone again.
Your feet are. Lovely, smelly feet. Daddy's lovely, smelly feet.
That's still working. It's flashing up on my screen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
All right, sorry about that brief interlude there, folks. Good to see my panicked face for once. All right, I can't remember.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Well, pigs, they're not the bloody same. Too many people are too busy with the phones and not going to something because they want to experience something. They're going because they want to go viral or have content. They don't want to experience bouncing around and just losing control anymore. Last gig I went to, it was just a sea of phones. It was just, and it really spoilt it. It kind of,
I think that's so it's almost like a self-conscious backlash. So then if you then go to an event, you're surrounded by 100 people on your phone and you go and your experience is going to, I don't know, I hate saying the word rock has kind of been so degraded, but I don't know, let's say metal gig or whatever, or punk or something that's going to have like a circle pit or sort of crowd formations and waves and traditional traditional dancing culture, you know what I mean, of like a mosh pit and people just people don't want to engage in that unless it's within, say, like an actual heavy metal festival or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Because they don't want to then all the people with the phones to turn and film them. It was always the secret. It was the same with like raves. It was nobody records what happens. It's not got a picture. You don't talk about it again. People's gun faces in the fucking 90s. My God, there's still the odd photo here and there of people. But most of the first generation ravers, yeah, they got away with it. Second generation, well, kind of a bit. There was still like people sort of going in almost like David Attenborough style and starting to try and record it and understand it. And then third wave, which was, I suppose, where I kind of jump onto this, we had kind of MySpace and shit like that. There's digital cameras, so it started to become a bit more. Then it became about like content production in terms of from the people putting on the parties as a way of selling the parties more. So it was rather than the underground, get the phone number, it then became about, find the secret website, find it there, find it there. And do you know what I mean? But yeah.
But at that point, we still didn't have these things in his pocket.
Yeah.
We had phones, but we did not have the internet like there, just constantly.
Just always watching.
You keep telling yourself.
Don't.
We keep telling ourselves that it's a good thing, that, you've got a map with you, or you can look things up anytime. Mate, we used to get around plenty fine with a paper map in the back of the car and a pack of fags. That were it, and you didn't need a mobile phone. You just went. I think life was a lot slower as well. It was a lot more, the pace was just nicer. It was just, you weren't expected to respond instantly. This is a constant. People just want an instant response. Give me a response. I've texted you. It's gone. Both hours have gone blue. Why haven't they responded? Have you fallen out with me? What's wrong? Have I upset you? No, I'm just chilling. I'm not going to respond straight away.
It takes us away our autonomy and our right to self-govern our time. Obviously, we're seeing sort of movements. France, quite interestingly, made a law the other year where they basically made it illegal for your boss to email you outside of certain hours. Obviously, phones, for all the still sort of shit tech, you can obviously limit apps and things. You can have snooze modes. There's all kinds of different things that you can put. But even to that step and be proactive is quite difficult. That's like you're smoking, not like choosing to throw out cigarettes. It's quite a difficult kind of process. One of the things sort of you said is interesting with the maps is actually, if you really think of it, so yeah, you used to be able to get around. There's road signs. There is the ability to ring. We used to be like, you'd have teletext, you'd have all sorts of older technology that obviously most of us have forgot about as a way of finding out information for flights and whatever else. And you had phone numbers. You would ring somebody in a switchboard. You all right?
I'd say facts.
Yeah.
You'd go, right, that one. And then you'd go around and there'd be 12 pages you've got to sit there and go through again, which would be another 10 minutes.
Yeah. CFAX though was brilliant, man. It had like quizzes and games. There's all sorts of wonderful ways. Yeah, all sort of wonderful ways that they were able to sort of utilize that technology on such a narrow spectrum analog bandwidth. And then, yeah, kind of give us a little bit of insight, but none of us kind of saw, I think of that. I mean, I literally grew up with that. I'm 34 now. So I literally remember sitting, being an insomniac and whatever else. When I remember actually being and TV turning off different channels, dying, and they'd be like, oh, you're fucked. But then obviously, yeah, you were saved by CFAX. You know, I'm just going to read about the border conflict in Pakistan because I can't sleep, but there's nothing else. Whereas now there's so much other content and stimuli that we can't slow down. And it's interesting, there's more and more people I talk to have this cognitive dissonance and bias in their own brain where they'll go, yeah, I'll get annoyed when I message someone and don't respond, but they'll get a message and go, I'll get that later. And it's like, please, we need to really draw our attention to this and be more empathetic for each other. I'll hold my hands up. Anyone that's basically messaged me in the past month, I've not gone back to anyone. I am fucking struggling with the volume of my emails, my inboxes. So I've got like 12 different email addresses from different projects and stuff that obviously majority of it's spam and shit. But you still have to sort of correlate and go through. Then there's like 10 different Facebook pages that I've got sort of admins that different bits come through addressed to me. Then you've got all the social media apps. Then you've got your LinkedIn. Then you've got text message. Then you've got 5 different messenger apps on your phone. And it's just so overwhelming because as soon as I try and start to respond to them and I go through 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, they start responding again. And it's almost insurmountable. And majority of the things it's obviously always lovely to have those conversations and interactions, but I'm still beguiled. I'm an MSN kid. We said goodbye. You spent fucking 5 hours on the internet going to find out how you can change the colors and whatever else. You went and found the song lyrics and triple checked the song lyrics to that song with the right words before you put it in. You've got all your shit, and then you went off and you found all these people around the world and you just chatted shit and you said hello and goodbye. And you knew when a conversation ended. And obviously I've recently been re-diagnosed with ADHD and I'm trying to deal with the autism thing. It's probably somewhere along this is why I struggle. The conversation doesn't fucking end. I can't be in a conversation talking about turkey basters from 8 months ago and then just jump at it. I need closure. I need to be able to shut that down in my brain. Otherwise, I'm then thinking about this conversation I have with the person going, what did they mean? Because I haven't like turned off that page and closed it off in my brain. Do you know what I mean?
Voice notes. That's what I like about voice notes. You've got tone, you've got context to it, you've got everything there. And you don't have to read and sort of go, and then don't even get me started on all the new acronyms or whatever you want to bloody call them, initializations, and what do these mean? What does half of them? I had to look up POV.
Careful.
Yeah, I had to look up what POV meant.
Did you on Google with Safe Search on? But yeah, I'm starting to get of the age now where I have to look up some of the terms of the youth these days because they change so fast. But it's every generation sort of does it to create their own, but now business does it to try and keep up with the kids. And it's interesting. I don't know who I saw talking about this, but basically my generations beneath me, purely through economics, are going to have less children, which means we're going to end up with eventually the teenage to early adulthood generation are not going to be targeted market. So for 60, 70 years of capitalism, it's you hit them from like 16 to 25, get them out, boom, gone. Then you get the kids again, boom, you get the kids again. Because then statistically, they're not going to have children, they're not going to be married, they're not going to have mortgages, they're going to be living at home, they're going to have access to funds, they're going to have part-time jobs, So you want their fucking money. So obviously culture has then reflected that change. But now with that market, that demographic getting smaller and smaller, they're going to have to market towards the larger demographics. So basically millennials are going to be the last large generation. So eventually when the fucking boomers die out and we get rid of the 70, 80-year-olds, no offense to any octogenarians or anybody out there, but in senior roles of CEOs, CFOs, etc., there's then going to be this short gap where instead of Gen Z, it's going to be millennials that are going to fill that because we're going to be the majority population. Do you know what I mean? So it's going to be quite an interesting sort of transition.
Oh, Gen Z scrambled the brains. There's going to be some right casualties of that. real kind of, and it's what's coming through. It's going to be weird what's coming. I mean, one of the phone thing, the one that really disturbed me the most is, I know children who can't speak, who are just not old enough to be verbal, but can operate a smartphone. That disturbs me completely.
Do you know what's more terrifying? I watched this in the supermarket. I'm glad you brought this up. I watched this in the supermarket the other day, and when the penny hit me, I almost felt like do you feel like a gravity shift in your body, and you feel like you've just suddenly moved? And I was watching this kid, and it was shit with age. How big? In his pushchair, 2.5, 3 months, toddler. We'll call it a toddler. There's an ambiguous enough term.
Preschool, pre-nursery, or nursery age?
Preschool? So yeah, maybe 3-ish. Let's go 3-ish. We'll be generous with 3-ish. But they had an iPad. Like, obviously, the part of the country I was at the time was more of an affluent area, so maybe that's not as shocking to a northerner as it should be, even though they left the house, let alone in possession of a child. But yeah, it was, you give someone a kid and it's throw it, But this kid knew how to touch this. It knew that it was precious. It didn't value it because its parents valued it. The fucking kid valued it. And so to watch it intricately move, and it's like, it doesn't really have fucking dexterity. And I'm thinking, as a kid, you need to touch stuff, get hands into what you're doing is you're operating. I can't remember how many fucking metatarsal carpal, all the other muscles and bones and bits in the hand. You need to work all of these things. If all of that kid is doing is working a certain subset of muscles, exactly, that's what it's going to do for its dexterity. That's the limit of its dexterity. And again, then if you're creating this relationship, I've often joked that Haribo is the first drug dealer because we blackmail our children with sweets and go, I'll behave. And I'll give you this sugary treat that I know fucks you up, but it keeps you quiet for a bit in a paradox. It keeps you off being, air quotes, quiet until you're loud again because you need another fix. And then I have to bribe you for chores or whatever. But now the phone's replacing that. And so they're then learning that every time they see that black box or a screen, the screen is more important than faces. The screen is more important than traffic, than anything around them. Unless it comes through the screen, it's not valuable. It's
babysitters. I mean, are we going to see an evolution of this thumb? Are we going to see an evolution of coming through because they've been doing it for so long? We're going to get enlarged thumbs. That's going to be interesting to see. Will we start to see that? Will we start to see other fingers, go get smaller because there's no need for them?
It's interesting. There's an argument to be made that the people who are then more addicted by the phones and whatever, they seem to belong to more of the class and I say class, not classification, not as in caste class, of individuals that are less likely to breed. They're hyper anxious. They're really depressed. They're fixated on the world. They're often quite more egocentric, not necessarily in a bad way. Obviously, I myself don't want children. Obviously, my opinions are quite well documented on sort of this as a stance. So then I think their actions of doing that obviously isn't then going to affect the gene pool. But then the people who then don't engage with social media or briefly touch it, it's so negative, I stay away. Those kinds, there's a lot of more people, I didn't mean that derogatorily, but they literally look at it and say, I don't do it, can't do it, too much shit, it's not worth it. They are more likely to follow your traditional life path, as it were. I think that they're then going to be the breeders. And so, as we were saying, if this slowdown of generation, I think that we're hopefully almost accidentally going to draw a line under some of our more toxic cultural traits by taking a generation or quite a large proportion of members of that generation out of the gene pool. Obviously, Japan is about 20 years ahead of us on this, what they call the aging crisis. There's obviously there's a wonderful Swedish mathematician who talks about peak child in 2050 balancing out at about 11 billion. And then the world's population will correct itself as, hygiene standards around the world come up, I was just about to say, obviously, contraception, everything, accessibility goes up, but we're maybe seeing contraception access disappear in North America, or at least in the US. So,
Dan, though, what about all the hormones that are in the water supply?
But yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of endocrine disrupting products that we're seeing. Obviously, the sperm crisis in the world as well. So even when people do want to and are financially capable of having children, obviously now, we used to laugh in the UK, Europe, an average age of 33 before you move out. Oh, your housing market, shocking. And look at what's happening here now. So people are not, you need the house first. You can't go, oh, look, we're going to get married and I'll live at mine and you'll live at your mum's and we'll raise the kid between. And like, it just, no. And we're now seeing, obviously, what the fuck, I can't even pronounce qualifications, but his name, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his name. I haven't read it enough. But the Chancellor, who basically crashed the fucking pound, they added several percentage points to the mortgage. So in some regions, you're talking 80,000 plus for a deposit. So it's just no. So then those people, it's the start of idiocracy. And it's those two couple, the couple at the start, and they're going, oh, he's finishing law school and we've got our debts and it's just not the right time to have kids. And, Billy Bob's like knocked up a cheerleader and he's got 4 burns from her and 2 from it. And that's what we're seeing but it's now not through the self-made choice. It's through the collapse of the middle class through Tory policy in this country. I don't know what you want to explain it as in others, but it's just basically neoliberalism using capitalism to now rob the middle class like they've spent decades robbing the poor. I want to find out this guy's name because it's going through my head and I feel bad for butchering his pronunciation.
And I'll just nod and go, yeah.
Look, if I want to have more highbrow political guests, as we were discussing, I need to...
You're right. No, you do have to get people's names, as you say.
Kwasi Kwarteng. There you go, Kwasi Kwarteng. In my brain, obviously, as people will have seen me before, I tend to read things, but I'm starting to recognize that I'm not necessarily, what's the word? Dyslexic, but I think my memory recall is when I try and read words and dates in my head. That's why I keep mixing them up sometimes. But yeah, I feel better now. I've qualified that.
Wow. We should all have that.
All right. Yeah, no. Especially actually, these are the first joints I've had. I've been on the road for a few hours there, so yeah, it's going to have its effect. Not quite. Exactly, entirely. Even there's a wonderful thing about it with short-term memory loss from sort of cannabis is that even if you forget the thing in the moment, the thing is still there. You just failed to grab it in that moment. Whereas some other substances that shall go unnamed, because I don't want to be a drug snob, nor am I a drug snob, and everyone has the right to consume whatever the fuck they want. Some may have more detrimental impacts on certain areas of the brain that are associated with memory. Obviously, we have to say associated these days with the brain because they don't necessarily have a fucking clue. It's all kind of...
Well, yeah, I mean, how many... I think it does this. This kind of indicates it, we reckon. Maybe sort of.
Yeah, there's a joke in academic circles that I'm still pretty proud of. This made Dennis McKenna laugh by saying that it's anesthesiologists are considered to be the only medical sector that understands the brain because they're the fuckers that can turn it off.
Well, yeah.
That's about as much as we know about it. They can turn it off and just about get it back on. Obviously, there are complications and issues with contraindications of the substances, etc. But on a whole, yeah. As a whole. Rather. But yeah, let's actually jump into some of these questions, if you don't mind. Where to start? Actually, here's one of the biggest ones. One of the reasons I wanted you back on the podcast is it almost entirely this question. There's a lot of things that piss me off as anyone who's a regular viewer of this podcast may be aware. And I obviously want to shed a light to that and have a conversation about it. So I'm seeing an incredible amount of scientific misinformation and, well, actually disinformation, to use the parlance of our time, because it is deliberate, used in marketing and advertising gimmicks. So I want to get your thoughts sort of on the manipulation of science by, I'm going to give a few groups here as an idea to work within: corporations, politicians, marketeers, and the medicinal cannabis industrial complex.
I think you've got lots of different ones there and they're doing it for different purposes. So your politicians is to get your people on side. Your marketeers, their whole job is to get you to buy more of their product. They want to manipulate you. That is their job. And if they're not manipulating you into buying more of their products, they're not doing their job. I as a scientist, when you design something, when you create something or you do some work, and then you take it to a marketing department, they will just simplify it to the point where you want to scream. You absolutely want to scream. Mm-hmm. Politicians, though, they are just, again, manipulating you. It's all game playing, isn't it? It's all about getting you to think their way and to get you to do what they want you to do. I suppose with the cannabis scene, there's lots of different kind of manipulation. You've got the whole, as you say, you've got the medical cannabis paradigm that's going off, but you've also got the wellness.
Sorry, this is like Tourette's now.
Yes. Well, you've got the wellness sector as well. There's a lot of snake oil being sold that it's saying that it can save everything, and we really need to take more responsibility of our own kind of health, our own what we're putting into our bodies, not just thinking cannabis is going to save the day, that it's going to be, oh, I'll take this and it'll all be all okay, it's all going to be better. It's part of it. Will help. It will alleviate symptoms. It will allow you to sleep. It will allow you to have a better life. But not. I mean, the thing that's like driving me crazy at the moment is the marketing that is actually designed towards children, and that, or I feel, is more. It's not designed. It's supposed to kindle that inner child within you, to make you feel that way, that innocence. And I don't like to see cannabis advertised in that way, because that is what is going to end up making the tabloids if a child gets hold of high THC products and ends up in hospital. We've got to be a lot more responsible in the way that things are being advertised in the way. I'm maybe it's because I'm getting older now. And I think I'm definitely changing, in my opinion, of these things. I want things for adults to appeal to adults, not to also appeal to children. And I think we need to be a lot more responsible in that way.
Yeah. So to sort of clarify on your marketing, do you mean sort of like two companies came to mind there? Don't sue me, you bastards. Oatly and Innocent. And sort of their branding and the packaging, and it's kind of I'm your friend, and it's all very nice and la la la, and call us for a chat, and it ends up reducing the seriousness of the thing. For all, obviously, no one has died of cannabis consumption thus far, despite many of us trying for many decades. There is still then obviously negative experiences. There is still then precipitous events for people with pre-latent psychosis or something like that it could precipitate and worsen in that situation. And we have to be mindful of the few when dealing with the many. But it's difficult because in a lot of the marketing, as we were saying before, of sort of not using the word cannabis, people not knowing the word cannabis, that if they don't know anything else, then they're regurgitating, as you're saying, the oversimplified narratives that they're being presented by these companies. And often the companies and the people inside of them, they're hampered themselves by the regulations and stipulations, meaning that they can't make claims even though a lot of the science is there. So they're having to use very fanciful language, very, Orwellian interpretations of certain terms, and skirting back and forth between like colloquial, legal and common interpretations of words, to just beguile people into going, oh yeah. It's like I'm writing an email to Tesco at the minute, because they've got a sign in the shop that says that CBD is an extract from the hemp plant. And it's like, well, no, boom, I want to sue you because you're making a false claim. Hemp plant doesn't exist. There is a cannabis sativa L, has to be italized in a botanical language. That's what you have to do when sending a botanical extract. So
technically, you can't extract from hemp. That's the whole classification of hemp, that it's for fibre.
In the UK, you're not allowed to, but this is then the gimmick. Again, this is how they're skirting around the language of it, is that, they can go, oh, don't worry, it was extracted from hemp outside of the UK where it's legal to do so, and then we've imported it because it's legal to do that. Then we package it and say it's this, and then that's legal. And then you've got a granny there going, well, will it help with this? And you've got whatever kid behind the counter or whoever is part of the business not even having to, but being able to manipulate that individual into buying whatever it is that they're peddling. And obviously what we're seeing now with the dissolution rate, I can't even say it, the solution percentages and ratios in these products is unbelievable. So I think Tesco's per 100 milliliter unit for a CBD product that they had on the shelf was £167. Yeah. And I know wholesalers. I've been around this a long time. I know what these isolates, they're isolates in all of these products. That's the only way they've got them on the fucking shelves. How much they're worth in value. It's frustrating to watch this hard-earned cash then go because that company was able to buy in allegedly. I'm not going to name any one of you, you muckers are, buy their way into the regulations, manipulate and deal with trading standards and other authorities and organizations so that their products are allowed to stand and they can make certain claims in certain ways as long as they call it hemp or they call it this or it's that, and it's infuriating because then anyone, as you said, through the censorship on social media and whatever else is trying to have these honest conversations is then limited from having it. And so they're perpetuating misinformation on their own platforms, which means eventually that just becomes information. And then we become misinformation. So the science becomes wrong. And then that's just like, why is it? Because it's only really around the war on drugs that no, I'm gonna walk that back massively. I was gonna say it's only around the war on drugs that science is manipulated by government bodies, but that's just not fucking true. It's not even close to true.
It's definitely. I've changed my whole kind of not wanting to actually share knowledge anymore. I think we've spoke about this in the past as well about this whole psychedelic scene that's coming through. The new thing that's everybody seems to be jumping on that are just, it was cannabis and now they've jumped onto the psychedelic scene and claiming to be experts in something that they've got very little experience in, know very little about. I'm not claiming to be any kind of expert in anything, but I struggle to take someone not seriously. Yeah, I struggle to take them seriously or respect what they're saying when they've got very little experience in something. They've had a couple of small trips and not really experienced anything or really experienced life. Because that's another thing is the experiences of life. I mean, we all have different experiences, but in order to be able to respect something someone's saying or learn from it, the best education is experience. And I think we're going to see the desiccation, the decimate. That's not even the word I'm trying to say. I'll go for another one because I can't get them out. The destruction of the essence of what mushrooms were about, and I've been sort of looking at a lot of documentaries on them at the moment, and how the areas of which they came from have been raped of them. That the actual knowledge is being misused. So people are having these experiences and expecting to come away with new knowledge rather than actually genuinely coming back with new knowledge. Again, it's that experience, it's content, it's a hashtag, it's I'm doing this not because I'm actually wanting it, it's the next big thing to do. And it keeps coming through. I'm wondering what the next thing's going to be. What is it going to be?
Medical cocaine. That's where we're going. That's where, I mean, they've already done it with
ketamine.
No, well, yeah, they did.
Well, that already started medicinally.
Well, yeah, I mean, so what's it called? There's Johnson & Johnson, I think it is, released a nasal spray that's cocaine based, and it is called something NOS, like nose. It's a pun on like nose. Because the ketamine one's called esketamine that they've released, and that's supposed to treat antidepressant. And so they've basically made it so that it's an instant delivery device like an inhaler, almost to deal with depression. So you just kind of have a little, and gets it straight in your system, obviously quite fast. But yeah, so I think that's kind of where it's going. To go back, before I lose my train of thought, again, it's back to the gigs and the people with the music and the experiences that we were speaking of before, is that now we're almost going again full circle, that because everyone can film there sort of thing, people want more obscure experiences. So the whole rise in, I don't know if you've seen a concept of dark tourism. You know, obviously places like Auschwitz and that are seeing a massive footfall rise, and you know, places of massacre around the world. You know, serial killers. Obviously, the Dharma thing on Netflix was huge recently. You can see the kind of morbid curiosity of people. Fucking brain. He'll get back. He'll come back.
It's all right. It's this time of night, isn't it?
We've recorded so late, actually. I should put a warning on this, folks. This is quite late night recording because I've been on the road all day. Yeah, but it's back to then its experience. So people want experience that others don't have. Find me train of thought again. So people want experiences that they can't have. So before phones and all the rest of it, people would go to a gig even if music they didn't like. So if it was some band that was like legendary, they go to a gig and be like, oh, yeah, I was there in 87. And it all started with Woodstock. And that generation of people go, oh, you should have been there. You should have been there. So every generation, I'm going to fucking be there. I'm going to go to all the things so I can say that I was there and did the things. And then it kind of got lost for a bit. I think with the first iteration of the rave culture, we're just like, we don't give a fuck. We're going to do a session, wherever the fuck we're going to go. The experience was almost secondary to the connection. And it was either the connection to music, the connection to the community. You were secondary. Whereas again, now the experience is based entirely around you. How can I get my selfie of me in this space? It's not just taking a picture of that. It's, do you know what I mean? And we're getting more and more. So we're losing the connection of each other. So you can go and instead of doing what I did on MDMA, going to events and yeah, you'd probably go see fucking 20, 30 minutes of the fucking music you actually wanted to see, but you'd have fucking 3-4 hours of amazing conversations with people from all walks of fucking life. Do you know what I mean? You'd be boxing up the fucking smoking area. You'd all be chonging and cuddling in the fucking corner and quite slightly passing the joint around, watching the bouncers flicking away and like, oh, what? Yeah, what's it? It must have been them over there. Yeah. It's playing the, do you know what I mean? It was that for me is what going out is. It's being with others. I don't want to just go out to be seen going out. So I've got some hashtags, I've got whatever. I don't really give a fuck about what I'm wearing. Is it appropriate? Can I get in the building? Will I be cold? You know, is my genitalia exposed? These are about the only things that I care for. Yeah. Then that's all you really need to know. But now this newest generation, as you say, I think because they've been brought up with it's the panopticon generation of they believe that they're observed at all times by everything continually, so that they're living in a fake way. The only time they're really free is in their own mind. Or actually, a lot of them are still they haven't clocked on to how the algorithms and the data harvest works. So they'll live one way externally, but on their phone, and I think that's all private. And it's like, nah, what you've built is a 15,000 point portfolio of data points that they're then selling around the internet to various places. The more you have of a nuanced and niche knowledge base, the more you are going to get tapped, because the machine, air quotes of machine, in the general kind of running system of the planet or systems, they need this more and more of the data. Because as more and more of us can break down in these smaller communities, they need to figure out how to infiltrate. That's supposed to quote CKY, to infiltrate, destroy, and rebuild in their image, and so that we have the illusion, the porn of life. In that it's, do you know what I mean? It's sensatorily stimulating, but it's not real. It's not there. It's not. Do you know what I mean?
Well, now, in fact, festivals have lost the shininess. That's the only way I can put it, because you see so much pictures via social media of what it's going to be like, instead of actually going and experience it for the first time. You almost go to something and go, oh, is that it? It looked very different on social media. Again, I feel sorry for that generation who never turned up to a festival, and it was like, wow, what's this? Wow, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And they've already seen it of, oh, where's this? Where's the person eating fire? Where's the...
They've already researched it, so then go get the pictures. Like, right, what we'll do is we'll go get a picture with the fire person, and then we'll go to this and go, and then but everyone's then done the same, and they're acting out their checklist again, rather than it being an organic experience. I remember it being like, all right, I need shoes I can fucking dance like up to 24 hours in. You need enough money, enough allegedly illicit substance that you may wanted at the time, the ability to stay warm, maybe a drug rug, plenty of water, some fruit juice for come down allegedly. Do you know what I mean? You basic sort of bitch pack. You backpack and you could go to any event and you were fucking sorted, and anything on top of that was gravy. But you had every ability.
You just reminded me of I spent 20 quid on a square of fleece that was cut out because it was 4 o'clock in the morning, but it was the best. Oh my jeathers. It was just, and you just hit the nail on there. It was just like that. And there's a couple of us who's got these, and there's this picture of us going, and it was the best. And it wasn't very, but it was amazing. Oh, it was bloody amazing. And as I say, I just feel sorry for this generation where they're not going to feel that novelty, that kind of that what you feel for the first time of walking in somewhere, and it just takes wow. Oh, clubs that they've never seen the inside of. I mean, there's some of the laser shows now of insane, just absolutely insane. Of what's actually going off, and what I see of Burning Man. This was a new you may have been very au fait with it. I wasn't. This was the first time I'd kind of seen this, but a lot of people going for the posts of it and not realizing that it was slap bang in the middle of the desert, and you're going to get covered in sand, and you're going to get really burnt, and you're going to get windburn, and it's not going to be all glamorous. There's going to be generators going everywhere, so you've got carbon monoxide poisoning as well, and it just was not. But to actually go to that, I can see with it not knowing about it, the novelty of it would have been amazing. But from what I've now seen on there, is not. It wouldn't be. I don't want to go because I've seen too much on social media.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Entirely. It ruins the mystique and the allure. And obviously there are plenty of burners out there. I nearly joined them as a group when I did my American road trip. I was trying to work it so I could go through Burning Man, but their ticket process, man, nah. You think Glastonbury's hard in this fucking country? Jesus Christ, to get a ticket for fucking Burning Man. And then it becomes very kind of nepotistic and internalized and very exclusive. Once you've been, you can go again almost, sort of thing, you know? And yeah, most people go to Burning Man for nighttime. They go for the lights. They go for the images and experience. And a lot of it now it's CEOs. It's safe tripping. It's so you can be, an executive and, we'll try DMT one night and we'll take MDMA, and you'll do it with all the other CEOs and CFOs and fucking all the others in the safe environment, knowing there's no cameras, knowing there's no whatever. And again, it's elitist. Whereas this came out of the lower classes. And again, we almost hijacked it in British culture. It came from dub culture, which came from West Indies. So it's always just about the music is accessible. That's the point. Is the music is to be free. I mean, anyone that's watched Woodstock '99, the 3-part series on Netflix, available on all illegal streaming platform services as well. Fuck Netflix. I'm going to beef with them at the minute, personal reasons. But yeah, the point is, if you look at the juxtaposition between that, there's a point where they're telling a story in that, and they're saying that when they built the first Woodstock, they had a choice. You either have a fucking amazing stage, or you have a wall around the thing. And they made the decision that, all right, we'll not have the fucking as high fences around it, knowing that people would get in for free. But it was about the experience. And then juxtapose that with the decisions they made around Woodstock '99 in uptown New York. It
was insane what they did there, and the fact that they were trying to blame Fred Durst for inciting the crowd. Well, hold on, you booked him. Didn't you know what he did on stage? Didn't you ever listen to any of his music? Didn't you understand? Of course his super ego was going to take over. Of course it was going to G them on. That's what you paid him to do. That's what they'd gone there to see. It was just... That was just...
Yeah, mental, like, there's also free love, and they were trying to revive the ethos of Woodstock, and they had barely anybody that played Woodstock, and obviously, Janis Joplin that I did, but there's still quite a lot of people, some people, I'm going to taper my response there actually slightly, some people are alive that will have and probably been up for playing. But yeah, the acts that they booked on the evening, they had a rave hanger, and they didn't understand rave culture. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I said, they had Korn and Rage Against the Machine, and it was like, they were famous bands at the time for not being love and fucking peace. For all, yeah, someone like Jonathan Davies seems to be in private quite a loving, calm, nice fucking geezer. You know, a lot of them are. You look at Fred Durst these days. He's gone all, what do they call it, call it dadcore or whatever. He's just kind of gone off his own thing. You know what I mean? An old power fucking to him. But exactly that, the fact that they weren't aware of the vibe they were going to create. And again, the culture was so fucking different. It's like the Generation X, they grew up in the shadow of this, of, peace and love and free things. But those hippie kids became the yuppies. They became the Reaganomics majors. They became the fucking Thatcherites. They became the deregulated hyper-capitalists that took over the fucking world. And then their kids, they fucked up with the fucking the Generation X. So when it became their time to do shit, what do you think they were going to do? But they didn't have the revolutionaries, the intellectuals that the 60s and 70s had. We didn't have no Timothy Leary, no fucking Ram Dass leading us. We didn't have no Martin Luther King, no Malcolm X. There weren't any of these within Generation X or within my generation. And there aren't any within Gen Z. They've spread too thin. It's something, imagine the totems in society above the crowd. And now they've cut them all down, so everyone's just on one slight totem. It's the Andy Warhol thing of 15 minutes of fame. What he should have actually thought, what we should have thought of that is if everyone then has 15 minutes of fame, it means no one has Madonna status anymore. There isn't a Britney Spears anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's not the same thing. You get on and you're like, all right, you've got a hit song this week, you're famous, boom, drug rehab, I'm done, next. It's just that revolving factory of individuals.
Yeah, but have you seen Madonna lately?
No.
Whoa, mate, she's gone like she's clinging on to her youth desperately. She's had a lot of facial work and she's using TikTok. Yeah, well into her 60s. She's doing some kind of real controversial videos. There's one at the moment where she's throwing a set of underwear, and if it misses the bin, she's gay. And she's trying to make herself relevant by coming out as gay, but everybody sort of is just responding with, well, you're bisexual. We all knew that. That's nothing.
Yeah, that was part of your shtick. That's your brand. We get that. Yeah, it's celebrities on TikTok. Let's just have a little sidebar here, because again, I don't use TikTok. I have people in my life, obviously, that use it, and despite my pleas, I guess, and my informing them of exactly how it kind of operates as a platform, it is probably the most malicious bit of social media software that you can put onto your phone in terms of its invasive nature, keystrokes, etc., live camera, but yeah, celebrities moving on to TikTok. TikTok, they were smart, them founders. Basically, everyone that goes on to TikTok goes viral. You go and you get a big video, whether it's in 4,000 or 4 fucking million. You in some way get a much larger response on one thing, often something very benign, something you can't repeat. And then you get stuck in this thing. There's I think it was B.F. Skinner in The Pigeon. Maybe misquoting this. There was one of the behavioralist researchers, and they basically pigeons in boxes, and they'd arbitrarily feed them pellets of seed. And the bird in its head would try to understand this repetition of behaviors. So if the bird stood on one leg and you give it a bit of seed, you go, if I stand on one leg, he gives me seed. But then if you didn't do it, you'd go, all right, and then you'd get into sort of panic, all right, and then you give it again. And just in this continual confusion of trying to understand the cue that gets the positive feedback. And so you then end up in this cycle with the platform. Why am I not getting it? Why am I not getting it? But still getting that continual sort of dopamine hit from the next. It's a slot machine, more so than ever at TikTok than others, because it's seamless. You flick up and you're into the next sound. You open it and it's making noise immediately. And because of the volume of numbers that are going to this, celebrities from all walks of life are coming out and doing the cringiest fucking videos. And they're doing it not for their own revival of their career, but because they understand there's ad revenue to be made. So they're doing it to think, hello, hey, honey, and then there's some product or there's something placed, and it's a hashtag ad and whatever else. But it's still, they're just milking, and it cheapens what they've done. Do you know?
Yeah, this is exactly that. Exactly, it's why do they? They're addictions. I'm sorry, we've got to start calling these social media platforms, what they are is they're addictions. We cannot separate them from that. And they are getting people, kids from before they can speak. It's drawing them in. It's constantly, and it's allowing control and that manipulation, that of being able to feed what they want you to and how you want to feed. I mean, how much has been coming up on your social media that you've not wanted during the whole COVID thing? How many times did you get vaccinated?
The majority, I mean, not just even invasive messaging where they put that and obviously misinformation, all the other various helpful tools that they provide for, air quotes, our safety. In general, the things that I'm interested in, I use social media, again, just keeping in contact with my network of people, from friends to colleagues to just familial individuals in general. But also as just an insight to observe the world, I guess, in the larger social experiment, and as news source and intake of pages and groups and whatever that I like. And yeah, in general, I can never find the things I fucking want. So I'll often then find it on a third-party news site and then go, oh, what the fuck? And then have to search that thing on Facebook to then find the people that I follow talking about that thing. Whereas then whatever's in the headlines at that point, anyone that's commented on the thing that the system wants you to talk about, that's what my newsfeed is then full of. And it's not stuff that I'm then interested in. And I'm at the point now where I don't want to unfollow and mute or whatever. So since I got back from the woods, I'm rarely using it. All my apps are muted. All my apps are blacked out, as in the white's removed. I'm trying to only go on at certain times, really, but I'm getting onto it and I'm getting a nauseous feeling almost instantly. So it'll come up and 3 this, 5 this, 10 this, 20, and what? And it's almost like I feel like I'm ignoring somebody. Like I've gone to a house party with a friend and I'm talking about everyone else. So I'm just getting on with the evening. I'm shit, my mate. And I keep going back to it. And they just sat there in the corner. Oh, I'm fine. I'm okay. And I feel bad. I need, you know what I mean? And I want to get on with my life, but I'm just going then back. And so I'm aware of my own addictive cycle with it. But there's also, again, maybe it's called the death of FOMO in me, the fear of missing out, for another to explain another acronym there. But I'm not quite sure what it is because I'm not really even then utilizing it. I'm utilizing far more YouTube at the minute. As I said, I'm reading. I want to learn more about things. I want to close off some questions. I want to, learn more rather than just fill it with this shit. I realized that I could then read because I wasn't reading hundreds of statuses. I wasn't looking at all this crap and then thinking about it, as I was saying before, just opening it to outrage.
Yeah, opening a book, you've got nothing coming in from the side. You've got no alert. You've got no noise. You've got no notification that means absolutely nothing. No little red dot that means absolutely. But it's distracted you. It's distracted you from what you are reading. It's distracted you. And even trying to read an article online, you can get halfway through an advert and then realise you've actually been reading an advert, not the rest of the article, because it was an advert that was in there. So I've completely given up trying to read articles online unless it's an actual PDF. So it's in that format, and there isn't that means of things coming in. There isn't other kind of interactions, trying to get my attention. It's that overwhelmed you were speaking about at the beginning of this. I too feel that, and all those different platforms. And then you've got to remember which platform was it that they contacted me on, and then hold on a minute, they couldn't get hold of me on this platform, so they've tried me on this one.
What's their name on that platform?
Of what do they come under, and then you try and search them, and then no, you can't find them because you can't actually remember the name on that one, and you couldn't get the underscore in the right place. And was there a 23 in the middle of that? And you actually then can't get back to what you were doing, or the amount of times I've gone to my phone to look for something simple like a train time, gone into my phone, 10 minutes later, then realised I'd gone into it to look for a train time because there'd been a little red circle on something, and I've just gone into that and doing that.
Interesting. I was just thinking that, I wonder if there's something in the neurology to something similar to Alzheimer's. In the what's happening with the neurons is there's a misfiring, there's a misconnection, there's something not quite, because it's the same way that forgetful with age sort of thing, but yeah, so as a precursor to sort of Alzheimer's, to say that people that get sort of really forgetful stepping into rooms. I spoke of this last week. I think it's got something to do with Pavlovian conditioning in school. So a lesson finishes, they ring a bell, and then you pack up your stuff and you go through a doorway into a neutral space and then into another doorway. They ring another bell. You learn about that. Then they ring a bell. Then you go through a doorway. And so it's like compartmentalizing these things. Whereas the phone now is so, we think that we're multitasking, but we're not. We're just getting distracted. And then you remember halfway through that, you close that, you go to that, then another. So you've added 15 steps to a 2-step process, but we still think, oh, no, I'm doing it fine. But it's odd that when you become aware of it, you're not then solving the problem because the technology is not designed in a way to be efficient. Even when you open up your phone and you've got your apps there, even the colors that the app icons are already leading you. Even the way that it default positions them on your phone, the way you open the widgets and the way that the space, the colors of different, all of these have been meticulously designed by groups of engineers. I'm trying to get Tristan Harris on the podcast. Who's former Twitter and Google engineer, and was in the documentary. Too many of them. Not The Great Hack. The other one.
Great Social Experiment.
Social Dilemma.
That's it.
Yeah, and and so the way they talk about it, people sat down and worked this shit out. Like didn't just come into the world as a concept. That was worked out. Even the wording of it, the thumb and. These things are not accidental. They are by design.
Yeah, complete focus groups to sit down to see how people respond. Do you like this shape? Do you like that shape? What makes you feel happier? What would make you engage with this more? What shape is more pleasing to your eye? Whereabouts on the screen is your eye drawn to when you do this? And as you say, the position, like when you walk into a supermarket. When I became aware of that, my buying habits change completely. The way that the whole shelves are set up and what is positioned where at eye level, so that you pick that what is at eye level as opposed to those in the other places. And when you see it, when you can't unsee it, and then you become frustrated with it, and that's the bit where I've hit now of this, that I can't unsee this stuff, and so I detest shopping. Absolutely detest it. And I've now got a fruit box that comes to the house, which is easier. So you just get what's seasonal. You don't pick it. You then have to make meals with what is. But it's took that whole kind of issue away for me. It's one of the ways that I've kind of learned to deal with it.
I think it's the awareness of manipulation. It's also the surveillance, especially now with the big supermarket chains, what they're doing, because they're obviously moving towards more automation with their tills and the checkout systems. They're creating pens. So when you walk into most of the Tesco's now, they have a giant screen and you watch the camera and they put a little light on it that goes 360 that shows you the time that it's taking to recognize your face and log it into the system and count you into the store and out the store. And so all of these mechanisms, making you feel like you're going into prison, you're doing something wrong, and they're just waiting to catch you out. Do you know what I mean? It's an oddity. It's an extension of obviously the perversion of the police force in not just this country, but the world in general, really, as them being a responsive force to being then air quotes, very loosely interpretation of the word proactive force. They're proactively fucking you up. They ain't defending shit. But I can understand that entirely, and I can see why that's then leading to more kind of problems with the way that society then operates, because we tend to then we withdraw from these things. If something becomes problematic to us, we'll then avoid it. But then the more we avoid something, the easier then they change it. So next time you then go into that supermarket and you're like, why is there no people on tills? I've brought paper money. What do you mean we don't use paper money? Do you know what I mean? We have to be present. And I'm not saying this is just you. I'm also saying this out loud to myself right now as a reminder that we vote with our actions. As I mentioned last week about to be an activist is to act in the world as you want the world to be and others to act. You lead by example, not with, a caution and, I'm the self-appointed leader. Come with me, guys. No, you just fucking get on. I think more of us need to just get on and fight back against this through. There was a wonderful protest, and it was the same generation that we were speaking of before, of sort of the post-war boomers, in one of the Tesco's down south, and they just fucking stopped. All of them went to the 5 tills, hundreds of people. Everyone that kept coming in went, fuck you, we're not using the self-service, and just joined the queues and just went through it. That's the kind of activism that we need. You don't need to sign to an organization. You don't need to put your views out online. You, in a moment, act in a way that is representative of your values and of the world that you want to see. And that direct form of activism, I think, needs to come back. Otherwise, more and more of us are just going, oh, just retreat. And where do we retreat? To see the world, that black box again. And it's then deciding what that world looks like. So it's then telling you that, oh, well, this country is dangerous. Oh, but this is a wonderful travel destination, and click here for flights. And it's all integrated and meshed, and there's no way to really leave that system. As soon as you go onto the internet, now it used to be for all you kids out there, you used to dial up the internet. It wasn't there. You made it happen. You had to get the screen. I'm sorry if I'm talking down here, guys. But you had to turn the computer on, make sure nobody was going to pick up the phone, and dial up the internet.
You couldn't use the telephone. You couldn't.
But it wasn't just you guys. If somebody rang you, if your inconsiderate gran who just happens to ring your mum every night at 6 o'clock, yep, that's cutting you off. It's the system was difficult. But again, the point of it being, you had to choose to do that. Even when Facebook and that first came around, I mean, I remember MySpace was quite benign. Obviously, it didn't have the algorithmic manipulation. You had again a history lesson here, folks. Or I'm just giving nostalgia to my generation of listeners. And your biggest worry on fucking MySpace was, shit, who's my top 8? You know, I've spent a week with Dave now. You know, I'm going to have to put Dave in there. I haven't seen Mark in a month. Oh, but Mark will be pissed for sending a message. Oh, fuck. And then the politics of who goes up, and then you get, oh, I found a hack. We can get 16. 16, boom, boom. And then you're like, oh, 7. I've got a 17th friend, though. And these are the practice, you know what I mean? Whereas now, again, this is not that. You had a real world. You had a life. And then you went and you had to, the internet, you had to make the internet. Now the internet is there and everywhere. And at any given, and it's weird. And I say this, I'm trying a digital detox, but even in the fucking woods, obviously, I needed my phone because I got dropped off. I needed to meet at a certain time, so I needed an alarm to wake me up on that day, and the ability to ring that person if they hadn't turned up at the preset destination. But I still found the pang. I still turned it on and took a few pictures. I've made a point though. I've not published, and I'm not going to publish the pictures I took because I shouldn't have taken the fucking pictures. But I still had this thing of, oh, others are like this. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you trying to get a nice? It's like it's a nice image, but sit and be there, and do you know?
Yeah, my greenhouse is that for me. Is a disconnect from it of getting away from it, of going and sitting in there, and it's again going over that threshold. You talked about. I regularly do it. I go out through a door and go, can't remember what I came in here for. Yep, and I've found that greenhouse because I've got doors. If I get to go and shut those doors, it's like shutting the world out because that is that space. That is, and I've regularly started. I mean, I did Greenhouse Full of Love for a while, and then I stopped because it's like, no, I need to make this my space of actual escapism. And part of that escapism needs to be from that phone. It needs to be from that constant need of contact. And you said in the phone that you needed it. No, you didn't need it. You wanted that safety. You didn't need it. You could have walked from that woods to a town. Your legs are working, aren't they?
Given the amount of equipment that I took with me, that would have fucking sucked. And I was in the bottom.
Yeah, I'm not saying it wouldn't have sucked.
But obviously, yeah, I could have survived entirely. It was for convenience. Yeah, I could have actually then got that person. I could have left the phone with them, and obviously, I could have then taken a watch. I've still probably got my pocket festival watch kicking around somewhere. I could have taken that and known the time for the day. Obviously, I can count the days. I wouldn't then, miss the date. Yeah, maybe that's something I'll look to do sort of next time. It's something I do now when I go to the shops. I leave my phone at the house.
That programming. It's that programming though that we are told we need it for our safety. That we and you've said it to yourself there. I needed it because of this. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, you didn't need it, you wanted it.
Yeah, and then I spent the whole time in the woods fucking worried about it. Every time I'd lean back against my bag and that, but oh shit, it's my screen. Do you know what I mean? And then when it started raining, I was like, I didn't care if I got wet, but I was literally like, my phone's in. My books and my phone were the two things I cared about. Anything else can get wet. The fire was established enough. I had enough dry firewood. But yeah, and I think there's almost an insecurity to it. And like I said, my generation with the transitory generation, we were born analog and then raised into digital. So we knew going out and climbing trees, ringing on a house phone, meeting at a certain time, and having that trust. You come back at a certain time, and if you didn't, yeah, your parents would give you a good 5-6 hours, and then when you came in, fuck me, you were getting bollocked. But they didn't panic. They knew, it's been half an hour and Jeremy's not home. I've checked his Twitter and he hasn't updated in 2 days. Do you know what I mean? It's not that kind of shit anymore. It's like, that's the kind of shit it is now. It used to just be, they're cool. And it's that we can't trust each other. And it is that illusion, that lie of safety. The more we let fear in, the less trust we have in ourselves and in others. I use a crude fable, I think it is. I'm not going to name the region of the world it comes from because I don't know. But a bird on a branch doesn't care if the tree falls, or the branch breaks because it trusts its wings. And that's the thing in society is, oh, by the way, there are sexual predators out there. There are violent carjackers and thugs. There's war, there's famine, there's plague, there's disease. But if you're aware of this shit, if you don't go to the war zone, if you don't use dirty needle for injections for sort of things, if you have a good metabolism, if you eat well, your actions, your proactive actions reduce risk. And it's like we've forgotten that mechanism. It's like they go, planes could be hijacked. So then, and it happened for 9/11. And then we're now 21 years removed and we're still taking our shoes off. They're still taking laptops apart. You still can't take more than 100 mils of liquid. You can't take fucking toothpick. Like, what the fuck is actually going on? Like the US statistics, I think back from 2018, there was one instance that they said having US air marshals that they'd come close to stopping. And even that wasn't considered a serious terror plot. But the illusion then of what people are going through airports, from what I remember as a kid traveling through, and it's la, 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 la. And I remember actually we traveled to Florida December 2001. And I was, I made a deal with my mother. I'd been, 14 at the time. I was obviously quite a strong tobacco smoker. And so the deal with her is she bought me cigarettes, I did steal money. And basically we landed at Chicago O'Hare. And that was the longest I hadn't had a cigarette in a long time. I was obviously quite an emotionally unstable child, given sort of the environment that I was in and whatever else. So my first instinct was, there's a door. I've got tabs, I've got a light, I'm going out that fucking door. To be met with a fucking M16 and a guy in a military uniform, because obviously the Americans' response to this was put the army in the fucking airports until they established TSA and all the rest of it and the other protocols and the Patriot Act, etc. But yeah, I went out for a cigarette and was met with a fucking assault rifle and a weapon of war, child smoking a cigarette, young person smoking a cigarette. Like, the proportional responses to this are just mental. There are dangers. I mean, now if, say, we invented the car, it just wouldn't fucking happen. They invented the car and then, oh shit, guess they need roads then. Do you know what I mean? And they went, all right, they're smashing through the windscreens and it's breaking them. All right, shatterproof windscreens. Oh, they're smashing through, they're hitting the windscreen. Seat belts, we should have thought that one first. Brakes, airbags. Make the action safer. You don't then just go, don't do the fucking action.
They would have designed cars. They would have never allowed us to drive them if now. They would have been all driverless because they could then communicate with one another. And that would be I want driverless cars. I'm really wanting them to get on with getting them sorted to make my life 10 times easier. I won't need a driving license ever again. Won't have to go through all that. But we've got 1 month to go. Fucking yes. So yeah, you mentioned that out there as well that you've got all these sexual predators. Are there any more sexual predators than there ever was, or are we just more aware of it, or are they just? Do they have more tools to be able to have more access to their victims? Has the internet created this place that never existed? To
maybe upset Rupert Sheldrake fans, but to borrow one of his theories of morphic resonance when crystals form in nature, when it forms the first form of a new crystal, first iterations are incredibly difficult, take a lot of energy and a lot of time. The more this is mass produced, the crystals then form a lot easier, the molecules form a lot easier. It's almost like an inherent sort of memory or intelligence. This has then been adapted into sort of behavior. They observed this in, say, I think it was blackbirds in the 1950s, 60s in New Zealand, like in the UK. And the birds started pecking gold-top milk and discovered that was the creamiest milk. And there was a mechanism almost in the birds simultaneously around the world that understood this kind of behavior. And I think there's the more, I think there's always been in our culture people that have preyed and sexually manipulated and abused people. But I think it's not really been until the 20th century that we've kind of had conversations enough to go, well, consent on a larger scale. You know, it's been lawful for a long time in most places to rape your wife. She was property. Do you know what I mean? There were a lot of religious sex out there still. Yeah. So as rights then developed in individuals, I think then, I'm running two parallel thoughts here. But then I think, as the rights sort of evolved and we're having more of these conversations, so then the age of consent has obviously gone up in places where it was 10, 11, 12. I think recently only in the Vatican City it went up from 12. So then the cultural norms changed. So whereas I think prior to that, obviously, if you were having sex with 13, 14-year-olds, that was air quotes normal in that time. Don't nobody take this clip out of context, although we've got the original here of the conversation. But that was air quotes normal. In the same way, if you look at songs of the 50s and 40s and 50s, there's blokes in their 40s, 50s singing about my sweet 16 girl. You know, oh, she was but 15. Do you know what I mean? And so then as the culture sort of changed, and then I think twin that to loop in the other track of the technology, the tools. Whereas before, if you then had that kind of thing, a lot of you'd fantasize, you could fetishize the children and the younger people you see around you, but without risk of exposure, you couldn't really act upon it. You know what I mean? It was really hard, I imagine, in the analog days, if you couldn't just go on go on a website, find, you know, a subgroup within Reddit or whatever, and then go on to a secret Tor browser and connect with all this fucking material. So exactly, the tools make the equipment more, the materials more accessible and more numerate. But I think also when we look at what we're finding is that the number of content per individual is massive. So this then suggests that there's small numbers of people that are involved in it. Obviously, it's the same with the children's stories, that when they fall out of the cracks, they're not just caught by one predator. They're almost systemically passed around once they're outside of that system. And so then I think that speaks towards, it's a smaller group than we think of anyway. Obviously, we know the news is hyperbole and focuses entirely on negativity, the same as for social media, for clicks and for higher attention, for advertiser revenue. But then also, without sounding like an old conservative white man, I think there is something corrosive in society as a whole, where there isn't normal anymore. There isn't a base of society. So whereas it was before, you went out in the street, you opened your door, and for all you were you, and you were entitled to be you, you still held a little bit back. Not in a suppressive, negative, whatever, but it was for respect. It was you going, I shouldn't be loud on this tube, and you expect others, and others weren't loud on the tube. I won't play music loud on my phone because I don't want others to do it, so I won't do it. Do you know what I mean? I don't need to be all this brass and colours and and be obviously flamboyant and as wonderful as you are. But there's environments and places for that. Do you know what I mean? That's not to, again, suppress who you are, but it's the basic respect of the commons. And it's because the commons, I've spoken this before, has been robbed from us. They've spent a century stealing it. It used to be public parks, public space that everyone was entitled to. You'd have people on soapboxes. You'd have all sorts of people just picnicking. You'd have benches everywhere, bins constantly, public fucking toilets. You'd have the facilities and the ability for people to just be around each other, see each other, and with respect, harmonize and go, you know what? I'm not you, but you can be there and I'll be here. Now it's like, I'm not even going to be in the same park as them. They have different political opinions. Oh, their clothing's offensive to me. Like, what the fuck? Well, I'm a hyper left-wing or leftist, I suppose. I don't believe in the wing of neoliberal politics. I'm well beyond disillusion with that motherfucker. But I end up sounding like a right-wing pundit when I'm talking about this shit, because that's what I feel is that without the common space and the internet being the surrogate for this, and the algorithms lying to us and telling you that you're already in the commons when they've manipulated you a space and say, yeah, everyone agrees with you. Yeah, everyone thinks Brexit's a good idea, or everyone thinks Brexit's not a good idea, whatever your political persuasion is. Do you know what I mean? Whereas before, you went on the street and you said something and you'd get a vox pop. People would actually give you their fucking opinions and you'd understand what the hell is going on. Whereas now you go to social media and it just parrots back to you what it thinks you want. And it knows more about you. So it's actually now telling you what you think without having to, because you don't have another track. All you are is what it is. You're going, well, I'm right wing, so today conservatives did this. So that must be good then because I'm blue. Or the Reds did this. Oh, it's like football fans. And they're just screaming at the other tribe. And like, oh, you support them. How can you? Like, we've lost all of this. The point is to sit and talk. I know I'm getting a bit animated because I'm passionate about it. And I miss, it's stupid, and I am getting older, clearly. I miss meeting people on park benches. I miss just sitting in public spaces, whether I was smoking or not, whether I was doing whatever, and just having a fucking conversation, catching the eye of a stranger, and just
Wi-Fi
interactions, you know?
Wi-Fi got rid of that. So
you don't need that anymore.
Well, when you had coffee houses back, in your 18th century, these were places where they would go drink coffee and there would be debate going off. There would be, that is where people would go. There would be big debates, and there'd be different kind of areas where you would have different debates occurring in these things. You now go into a Starbucks and nobody's talking to anybody. They are immersed within their phone or on their computer. That is it. That people are not interacting with one another. And why is that? Because you've got free Wi-Fi in there and you can do your work whilst you're having a cup of coffee. We've all been guilty of it. I've sat in Costa at the train station in Retford. I'll get on with some work. And I think we need to get rid of, I think Wi-Fi was one of the biggest issues of making antisocial behaviour. That it because you've got that constant feed, you've constantly got that kind of there. You can, as you say, stood in a queue, and you're not going to get any meaningful interaction from it. What we do about it, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I've gone through the trying to, limit myself time to it, but then work and life end up dictating to me needing this, finding train times. Knowing if I to get a train is a prime example of it. And you can say, well, get rid of all the apps you don't need, but yeah, you might just need them.
Well, the one thing I suggest to people is move everything off your home screen. On your bottom four, or however your phone is configured, make them like a multi-menu. So you put in an extra layer. So instead of being Instagram, put it as all your social media. So you have to click into a folder, and then there's your apps. Because A, you're not seeing them, so you're not stimulated by the colors and the marketing of the logo itself. And you're giving yourself just enough of a cognitive break that you can go, is this where I'm going? Do you know what I mean? Because I do it all the time. I move my bottom ones around as well, so that, yeah, it still fucks with me when I'm fast trying to go to Messenger. That's not Messenger bollocks. But then again, it makes me deliberate because I'm suddenly not in a habit. I'm then going, oh, crap. And I have to engage with the conscious part of my brain rather than just that other bit that clicks to a social and then scrolls. And I'm like, this is not me Googling what lyrics were to that song or what time I need to put that in the oven for, or, and yeah, but anything you can put in your own way and to fight back to win just a microsecond, just enough that you can, am I choosing this? And obviously you can have a conversation here about a philosophical debate about determinism or whatever else, but in the smallest sense, like, are you in charge of that operation? And for most of us, most of the time, we're not. It terrifies me seeing on the road the amount of people that would scream at me for being a prescription patient that's got cannabis in my blood on the road, but every 5 seconds that they're stopping and trying, oh, we're moving again, oh, moving again, and what? And and they don't see a problem with that. It's fine. I'm doing it, but then they'll curse others out for doing it, sort of thing. And again, it's that cognitive dissonance once people can understand that, surely you can start to understand and empathize with people that have problematic issues with predominantly, especially intravenous drugs. In that it starts to change, and you start to make excuses for yourself, and you can start to lie and manipulate to yourself, and actually move quite far away from who you are in your core, but still have it trapped within this minutiae of fucking machinations that you're not necessarily in charge of, and that's not to say the disease paradigm or whatever, but you need to draw conscious attention to it to be able to challenge it. So like I said, anything you do kind of fuck with your own routine with your phone, do it, because honestly, you'll then become more aware of how much you're touching that thing. And yeah, from that can only be a good thing. So like I said, we know it's not real. And the more time we spend on it, the less we're going to recognize the fucking world around us. I think the reason we can't have a meaningful conversation about park the carbon argument and climate change and whatever for a second, but even just species extinction. Like 70% of species are gone in 50 years. I mean, yeah, but here, look, that's black rhino. Yeah, it's gone though. There's pictures of it. Look, here's a video on YouTube. And do you know what I mean? It's like as long as we've got it there, and it's all but it's still not real. We're still from philosophy-minded individuals, we're in Plato's cave. We are unaware that we are just watching shadows on the wall. Some of us can sense the heat of the fire and maybe even hear them rustling. But most of us are still beguiled by the imagery before us. We have no idea of the outside world. And this younger generation, as you said, that they've only ever raised, it was put in their hand before their hands could form. It was more of a meaningful relationship than their mother and father. You want to talk about the breakdown of your nuclear family? A lot of that is to the fact that they don't respect it. They don't understand it because they didn't fucking have it. They don't understand the reason that the mum isn't at home for 70 hours a week is to keep the fucking roof over their head. And there isn't a point of a conversation of the mum going, sorry, I didn't get all of your things this year, and I'm sorry I've not. The kid fucking hates you, resents you for it because you haven't supported them, and it's not your fault. But you then can't even have the language. You can't articulate to that child what is happening. You can't explain quantitative easing and economics to a fucking 8-year-old. You can't say, oh, daddy's just going to work hard. Yeah, why? Why? You can't get them to really understand. They're still going to form a detachment syndrome. They're still going to form a problematic cognitive, mental, and physical attachment issues with the people who are supposed to provide them trust and ubiquitous love and understanding. And then often what they're met with is exhaustion. Do you know what I mean? And it's frustrating because they can, go and escape to the internet and whatever else, but they're not escaping. They're turning it on and they've put in some information and it goes, oh, you're 17. Oh, you're from this area. Oh, your ethnicity is this. Oh, your this is this. Statistically, you're going to like this. And you've never got to like anything. You've never got to, you think you do. You may follow the friends that you have around you, but you haven't even really chose them. They were geographical. You went to school with them. You work with them. Do you know what I mean? Everything is you can go to a supermarket. It's the illusion of choice. You go, oh, I'm going to go buy and have this for dinner. And you stand in front of your pre-ready made meals and there's 15 of them. And how many thousands of you go in and do, oh, get the meal? And where is the individuality, the uniqueness? Yeah, you can go and cook it or whatever. But as we said, working 70 hours a week, who the fuck can do that? And again, you want to talk about the toxins in the plastics and in the preservatives and the E numbers and all the rest of it. It's everything is gone in the real world, but it's okay because we can retreat back to the sweet little box. And at least before, when the sweet box was in the fucking room and it didn't have legs and it couldn't follow us around, you sat with the family. And yeah, you'd have some awkward things where a sex scene came on or whatever, but it was an opportunity for a conversation or for an education and for connectivity between the generations. Every generation, you hate your children in some way because they're biologically programmed to rebel against you. They are just entirely, if you go back to caveman days, the youth drove forward ingenuity and fucking discovery within the tribes. So the elders, this is the whole, you conservative as you get older. Oh, it's quite nice here, innit? Oh, we've raised 2 kids, there's been no saber tooth. We've had no real cave-ins around here. It's looking quite nice, we're getting extension out back, we'll probably have some more kids. You want to settle, but then your resources quickly dry up. You know what I mean? The climate changes, the area changes. You're not moving, evolving. So it's the hunter-gatherer instinct from my primitive readings, or from my limited understanding, is exactly that. It's that we're constantly, not necessarily chasing, but wanting more food source, wanting to discover. And it was the youth that drove that. So each generation took us forward, and every time the youth that took us forward 5 foot are now become the elders that go, no further, no further, no further. And I can already feel myself and my generation starting to do it with the youngest. And they'll then one day do it with whatever comes next after Gen Z. I don't know what we're terming that. But you can see it's...
I think we've got what's Gen Y? I heard that term the other day and didn't know what that was, Gen Y.
Gen Y must be between X and Z, sorry. So Gen Z are like the 12th, they're like 2013? No, 20...
I thought millennials were 85 to...
It's 2000 and something. Or is it 2000? Or is it 2000? This is what... See, the good thing of the internet, we can live ask the internet. Millennials are... demographic... Oh, wait. What's this in? Millennials, also known as Generation Y. There you go. I didn't know. Although it does make sense. We had X before us and Z after us. So pretty sure they just, I think millennials is obviously like, I think a larger term, isn't it? To include more eras. So millennials are the parents of Generation Alpha. When the hell is Generation Alpha? Oh, we have a handy chart. So we have this is interesting. I see, I love learning shit, especially learning it live. The Lost Generation, which is 1883 to 1900s. The Greatest Generation, who fought in World War One, 1901 to 1927. The Silent Generation. I don't know, like they made a lot of fucking noise between 1928 and 1945. 1946 to 64 are the baby boomers. Generation X are 1965 to 1980. Millennials are 81 to 96. Generation Z are 97 to 2012. And so then, 2013 is Generation Alpha. Early 2010s to mid 2020s. So then what is going to follow in the mid 2020s? Generation Beta? Are we
no,
through the Gregorian alphabet? Interesting. I was going to say, because under current misinterpretations of one scientific study, obviously we have this really warped understanding of alpha and beta in nature. The Wolfpack study that was done, the guy came out and has multiple occasions discredited his own study and said that it was being massively misinterpreted because they studied juveniles in the pack, and these were determined to be beta males, and they weren't. They were fucking the kids. And so obviously they're not going to be working at the top of the pack and providing a fighting for hereditary and hierarchy because they were juniors. And so that's where we get this concept of, an alpha male, beta male, and all of that shit. It's also weaponized from Huxley's book, Brave New World, where there's obviously the caste system they have of the alpha, betas, the gammas, deltas, etc. But yeah, interesting that we're breaking it down to that. So hopefully I think they will come up with a different term for it, because I think the whole generation might get pissed off. I think Gen Z, at least, Gen X were like quite happy, because we're like, yeah, X is cool. It was in kind of everything. Growing up, I think really everything had an X. So we actually Z, the generation of people taking putting Zs on their name, cutting their name in half and putting a Z in it and going, that's my nickname.
I didn't even know names were a thing. I thought it was a handle. I thought that it was your handle.
Actually, I suppose now, it's your brand, isn't it? I can't really talk. Actually, I've obviously legally changed my name by default and had it changed previously in the past. So yeah, you brandize yourself how you want, folks. But yeah, it's interesting that I suppose parents might now actually think of naming their kids to be more unique. Obviously, people have always wanted them to be unique, but in a way that it helps them on, I guess, resumes, but also means that they can get a unique social media profile. Because I feel really sorry for the kids that are getting on now. Like my email addresses, because I got a unique name and I got in early, I got the best ones. Do you know what I mean? But then somebody that's got quite a common name now that's then trying to sign up for most of these things, it's difficult. They're going to have all 17 fucking numbers after it, or come up with something unique and piffy. But we've been at that 20 odd years coming up with our piffy little names since MSN days, I'm
going to say, do you get still your Tracys and your Sharons and your, Daves? I mean, how many kids do you hear now? I mean, kids called Dave.
I'm going to go. All right, here we go.
You've got Jadens, and you've got there were a lot. Beda went to school with a lot of Alexes, but Chantels and Shard, and they are even more. I mean, I remember being at school, and there'd be at least 3 Pauls in your class, or 2 Andrews, and.
Interesting. Yeah. So I'm on Office of National Statistics.gov website, and why is that not showing me the most? Is that the most? Yeah, the most popular names that this is showing me are with greatly rising popularity since 1996 to 2020. And names like Sebastian, Ruben, Theo, Riley, Ralph, Liam. Some girls' names. Grace, Lily, Esme, Lily. I suppose, you'll get Lily when you're young and Lillian later. So I think there's a lot of names that almost has an immature form, and then you go towards the mature sort of later. Although I'm surprised there's not been a lot more Mary Janes, to be honest with you.
I think they'll come. I think we've got the more blatant. But again, Mary's a biblical name, isn't it? They're not in fashion.
It's interesting to say that Christian identification is rising in some places in the UK. and generally in the West in general, but not participation. So people are not going to church, they're not baptizing or whatever, but they are almost reactively saying that they are Christian. They kind of, I think, whenever we move into doom and gloom, whether it be sort of economic or otherwise, there is an uptake in sort of religiosity. I think obviously people's individual spiritual journey, you can often get caught up in these things, Scientology, and not to equate that necessarily with Christianity or Judaism or anything like that. But yeah, you're kind of lost in the theology rather than the experience, to go back to sort of what we were speaking of before. But yeah, it's interesting that that's kind of on the rise, but it's not the action of it. So it's interesting that we may end up seeing sort of the demise of more and more churches. They are, I'll see places like Durham Cathedral, for example, they're really diversifying by hosting events inside the cathedral, really trying to have a reason for it to be. Obviously, it's similar, like I suppose Lincoln and other places like that are famed for their cathedrals and whatever else, but as the religious participation element falls off, but the identification stays there. People want the totems, they want the objects, they want to be able to see churches, but they don't want to go to them. do you know what I mean? So it's interesting that we're going to end up with these hollowed facades.
Well, they did. I think religion doesn't have the same place it used to. They've got, church used to be the social media of the day. That's where people would go to find out what was happening. So back it was the church was where you would find your information from. That's been replaced again by this black box in our hands. Everything you need to know is there. What need do you have for the church? Generally, what I've seen of those that become religious, it's usually to deal with death, is to give an answer to what happens after death, and is generally that's where I've seen people become more religious, is because it gives them the answer. And I don't see anything wrong with that, as long as you're not trying to push that onto me or push that onto other people and make people believe in what you believe in and that they are wrong because they don't, or treat people any differently. Crack on with it. But that's what the place, those. I have fascinations with churches. I think that the architecture of them and the buildings are so beautiful, and I love looking around them. I'm not christened. I have no religion. Never have been. Went to church as a sea cadet a lot. Well, not a lot, but to have ceremonies in there. But never went to. I must have been an adult before I actually went to a church wedding. It was always registry office weddings. I remember going to when I was younger.
Showing your northern roots there.
I've not even gone into working men's clubs yet.
Yep.
Meat raffle.
After party in the pub. Yeah.
Yeah. Bun fight.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, really, in that we're all seeking answers, and I think the more that we're starting to intrinsically and instinctively recognize that it's not in that little box, and the more that we're all getting kind of just, like I said, disgusted with the world around us, and we don't have the ability to meaningfully complain anymore. I don't think, because nobody hears anybody, nobody really listens, nobody really wants to ingest what has been said to them, put it through their filters and their biases, and try and observe it rationally, come up with a response and then a rebuttal ultimately. And it's just not structured the same. It's I'm this, you're that. You scream yours, I'll scream mine. We get bored and we move on. And there's nothing. I spoke last week of Connor of this idea of, I call it monoism, and that everything is the hierarchical nature of almost of capitalism. Everything is driving to one fucking thing. And so when the system goes, Ukraine war, don't ask, we're going to war, they're going to war, we're going to support them, all these bad things are going to happen. We don't ask, okay, yeah, where's the flag? COVID's going to have all this, and again, I'm not denying either of these events. They're just the two most recent I come up with. But the system says jump, and we go how fucking high. Whereas in previous generations, no, we had, the Fleet Street Mafia in the UK have obviously long since corrupted journalism, and it's become a middle class to upper class pursuit. And I think somewhere in the region of like 80% of journalists that are working in the UK media went to private schools, to give you an idea of their kind of class background. But they used to hold politicians to account. You used to be able to open a newspaper. Obviously, you had the biases of the owners, etc., and whatever else. But within it, there was still journalists that tried doggedly to discover truth. They would go after a story and report as much as they could. And they used to have investigative journalists that would follow a story for fucking years, and you could keep up with that thing. Whereas now the news cycle that we've got is it's boom, it's on, it's gone. Most places don't even print retractions. They're not even correcting their stories when they're proven wrong. They're just printing the next one, the next one, the next one. And this is the same with online as well. So it's corrupting the very basis of information. And if you can't then be informed, you can't make an informed decision. And this is true of any aspect of your life. So again, the reason I think people are falling back to sort of religions is they're concrete. They're kind of dead in the same way that Latin is. It's locked in its Christianity is thousands of years old. Judaism's thousands more. You know, Islam's obviously more Junie than the pair of them. But these are really centuries old ideologies that feel more rigid compared to this elastic and ever changing tapestry of reality that we're currently in. You know what I mean? There's no certainty. There's nothing you can hold on to in this world because again, it's on the screen. It's gone again. It's like dreaming, and you can't. You're in it and you're outraged on it. But as soon as you put it there, I don't even know what to sing about. Oh, yeah, we're not living. None of us are living, and it's weird because you're hearing this from the CEOs of the tech companies, and I was saying that they're struggling with this shit. Do you know what I mean? I think it was Tristan Harris, one of his colleagues on the social dilemma, was saying that their emails are fucking them up. They're waking up at 3 a.m. to check emails, and they'll go through and they'll check them hourly every day. Do you know what I mean? Constantly, I need to see. It's a weird thing that even the people that create this technology have now become a victim to it, and yet that's not enough of a red flag for us to go, Can we stop this? Like I said, even if it's not going back to dial-up, but something that just slows it down, that goes, all right, if you want to go take pictures, buy a fucking camera. Go to the process of actually having to then deal and go through with it. And then when you are taking those pictures, guess what you'll be? Present, focused, aware. When you go to the woods to take those nature shots, or you're going to go around the city, and you know what you'll see? Things you've never seen before. The world from a different perspective and a different view. Whereas if you're just then looking through that fucking screen, no matter how, it's the iPhone 75 billion 6, it's never, ever going to be as good as your human eye. It cannot be. There are things that just cannot be picked up by it. Every time everyone has tried to take a picture of the fucking moon on your phone, you're just not going to get it. I'm sorry, unless you've got the specific equipment and you've timed and you've sat, and I've been with photographers for night shoots and watched them fuck shit up. Not as in like they fucked it up, but like they did one minor mistake and it didn't quite work out. Do you know what I mean? And to get that one moment, that one exquisite capture. So again, that takes dedication and crafting. Do you know what it means? When you get that shot, it means so much fucking more. And again, I've seen photographers that take pictures that go, that's for me. It's a beautiful shot and it's perfect, but it's like, yeah, I put the world into that and that's mine. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, they may choose to share it sort of later, but and I think it's a beautiful analogy of our efforts and our energy beyond just what is air quotes traditional work is what makes life meaningful. And the way you find that I believe is in the commons, if it is church for you, if it is the pub for you, if it's whatever space there are people that are not the people you live with, not the people that have to tiptoe around you because of the rent or the mortgage. Do you know what I mean? Not the people that you're stuck with because you signed a legal paper and put rings on or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It feels more meaningful because, or it used to be, that you didn't want to offend or upset, or at least not intentionally, but you were always curious and wanting to know from the other something. Now everyone feels, I can go away and Google that. And again, you're going away and Googling what the algorithm thinks that you want as a response, and that's the way it's going to order it back to you. There is no such thing as a chronological fucking like directory of knowledge on the internet. Everything has been, except maybe Wikipedia, but that's even highly corruptible by the people that edit it. But the point is, there is no solid information on the web because of the way that we've designed it thus far. Everything becomes perspective. So then this is why you can end up, we're probably not that far away from gravity deniers. Do you know what I mean? No offense to anyone if you are a gravity denier. If you are, hit me up in the comments below because I'll be hella interested in your philosophy.
Yeah, but I've not come across that one. I've come across flat earthers, but not gravity deniers. That's a new one to me, that one.
I'm just putting it out in the ether. See if what'll bite back in the world. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I'm a little bit aware of time more of this evening because I can't actually remember what time we started recording. So I'll ask a couple more questions. I just want to get this. I'm going to ask this question just because of the term I put in the question I'm quite proud of. Probably should have trademarked this, but whatever. How do you feel about what I'm terming here microdose tourists? And what I mean here are people, to sort of expand on what you spoke of before, nibbling a little cap of mushrooms. And I'm thinking of Bill Hicks in his skit era of, nibbling a bit or eat the whole bag and see God. They're having that small thing, and they're getting, I call it like ego fortification for all. Obviously, we're now talking more about default mode network dissolution than we are ego death. They're fortifying their sense, and you get this uplift and jovialness, and you're not reaching a point of it being invasive into your consciousness. You're getting all of the pros and the perks without the difficult experience of the trip or the pleasant experiences of the trip. And that's where all of the growth is found. Yeah, you get the nice positive hangover, as I've described it in the past, in the days that come, and you can keep microdosing and build your own schedule and do whatever. And yeah, you make it some novel insight from the neuroplastic and genetic properties of the mushrooms. So you'll get new things connecting across the hemispheres in the brain, novel ideas, etc., a bit of creativity. But you're not really going to get those deep, serious fucking answers that you get from fighting that demon. And I mean that in the thing that manifests in you, that you feel take over you, that is the air quotes quintessential bad trip. That is the thing you need to heal. It's as Jung described it. That's your shadow. That's the dark place within. And you make that light by going in there and seeing what the fuck is there. And you deal with those monsters. And those monsters are you. They may come from childhood trauma. They may come from, cultural conditioning, expectations of, I don't know, fucking gender role or whatever. You know what I mean? The presets of society. But I think that then these larger doses, these macrodoses of these substances can really profoundly, I think the word to use here is humble you. And I think what the microdose generation are missing by not macrodosing is they're not being humbled by these substances. They are not, frankly, having a scary experience that makes them kind of question, is my sanity coming back? Well, I lived through this, and I'm not saying that everyone needs that and that's what they should do, but that's what I think these substances are there for, to really address that trauma, not to put a plaster on it and look at it and go, oh, yeah, I had this, but if I keep eating these, I'll be fine. That's the pharmacopic response to this. That's you've got depression. Oh, but it's cool. Take 2 of these every day for the rest of life, you're fine. Instead of going, well, why are you depressed? Whereas the mushrooms, LSD, whatever it is of the psychedelic entheogenic compound, it reveals you to yourself at that higher dose. And so I wanted to get your opinion, because obviously we work in similar circles, and there's a lot in sort of the nuanced industry of the journalism is really the forefront of this as the corporate face. As you said, the people that are invested into cannabis now investing in psychedelics, they're needing kind of this forefront, and it's people that are not necessarily, in my opinion, as well informed as they believe themselves to be, or as experienced as I think they probably should be, to speak for a far larger community. I know that was a huge question, but the small bit of...
If we look where these substances come from, it would be the shaman who would be the person who would first initially take them and then give them to others. Now, this would be a person of age with experience who had done this many, many times, had many life experiences and different experiences. They would generally have no ego and never be a self-proclaimed shaman. And what I'm seeing coming through is the 21-year-old shaman who has, had a couple of trips, a couple of experiences, and think they know it all. And I think that this is problematic. I think it is. I'm worried there's an abuse of the knowledge that psychedelics brings as well. Now, the knowledge that it imparts on you, the change that it brings within you, people are not using it responsibly. I feel that things are not being used responsibly. And I think the mysticism and the effects, that it's almost, again, it's a cliche hashtag microdose, that it's being done or being used because it's the next bandwagon to jump on. It's that next hashtag to have. I mean, what is going to be the next thing? Is it going to be, sniffing hamsters' genitals, or is it going to be something as obscure as that's going to be the next one that they're going to jump on? Do you know what I mean? We've seen it move. I mean, we've seen this where it was about cannabis, and then it started to be about mushrooms, and then ayahuasca seems to be the big thing at the moment that everyone's talking about, and what is it? Is it going to be the toads next? Because I'd actually heard in Glastonbury they were selling darts with toad venom on, and I was just like, I think we are. I think it's almost been disrespectful to it. Nature creates things for a reason and creates this knowledge, but I don't know if people are responsible enough for the knowledge as well and use it in the correct way.
It's almost like they can regurgitate the words but not understand what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't quite got it. And I suppose, the difference... and there is, I suppose, a lot of Western tourists flying out to like the Amazon and whatever else and having these experiences. And some of them, obviously, there's some hella horror stories out there. I could do a whole episode on some of the abuses that are done by some of the clinics that are set out there. But there's some also truly unbelievable and amazing work that's done out there. And part of it is the environment. It is then the purge process that you go through. They ask you to change your diet, to stop taking, certain medications and things like this. And it's to stop certain interactions with the compounds, obviously. But it's also then to give you the maximum experience of it. But most people then fly back, start taking those tablets again, start eating that shit food, do you know what I mean? And they've missed the point. They didn't get the message. They went as a tourist. They went to, look around. They didn't go and emerge. They didn't dive off the deep end. And that's not to say, go out in public on fucking 7 grams. Do you know what I mean? Like, gauge and build things. I mean, I seek to the woods, to deep, dark place in the woods. I find somewhere way off track where no one's going to find me. I build shelters in the way that obscure the view. I prepare for the worst. Or I could be immobilized for 12 hours here. Or if I'm going to take acid, I could have a really bad 36 hours. What do I need? Have I got everything? And as long as you prepare for these things, I think it's the hero's journey. As fucking... Can't think of the American. It is that said it. One of the American thinkers. No, his name escapes me. But basically, you need to struggle to overcome something, to achieve something, to grow. In the same way, to get bigger muscularly at the gym, you break and tear the muscles, and then they heal and they're stronger and they're bigger. It's the same with you. If you don't face adversity, if you don't challenge yourself, then you can't grow. And as many great philosophers said for many millennia, that it's your comfort zone is what is going to kill you. We're finding now, obviously, even just a sedentary lifestyle of sitting on the phone or whatever, we're now getting generational problem with the lower neck and with the lower back because of the way we're stretching the spine, the way we're sat in the seats. Yeah, we're going to start to see a whole thing with eyes more than likely as well because of the coloring of the screens, etc. So we can see the consequences of this. Yeah, when you then can go to these substances, and it's not even just the substance itself, it's the ritual. It's the same as I say with people that smoke cannabis. It's not just a joint. You're taking a choice to step away from that moment and go and engage in your ritual. If you have a box or you have whatever, and you do it in a certain way, you might do it on your knee, you might do it in the skin packet, you might have a special little V that you've made, or one that you got printed, or a table, or a tray, or do you know what I mean? And in that you go through your ritual, and that is you. It's like a Japanese tea ceremony. Do you know what I mean? You're getting a cup of tea at the end of it. You go stick the kettle on and go and do it. But in doing so, you are slowing and being intentional and there, and you are rolling that roach and checking and boom and top, and you that whole practice, then you consume the thing. And it's the same. Microdosing misses it all. It misses the ritual of going, I'm going to take mushrooms tonight. All right, have I got enough toilet roll in case these aren't all Liberty caps? Do you know what I mean? Have I got water and something to hydrate me if that's the case? I can't remember the name of the brand thing that you mix in water and it really helps rehydrate you.
I know.
Have you got enough sort of vitamins for the next day, or like orange juice or whatever, something to perk you? You plan and you structure it, and then you take it, and then you try and sort of do your whole forget, and then you get the giggles, and you go through your cycle of whatever, and it's up and down and up and down, but the whole process is as meaningful. But then the microdosing perception is you're only looking at the peaks. Oh, so that's all it is, and it's like, nah. For the higher the peak is, the lower the valley will be, but it means the better the view. Because you climbed that fucking hill. Yeah, you may have tumbled down the other fucking side at one point, but guess what? You climbed another hill and got another fucking great view from it. And that's what I think that they're missing. And to then say that the limit of these, or even worse, to imply that large doses of these substances are dangerous, having not experienced them. I can say I've experienced more than enough of the majority of entheogenic compounds to have forgotten most experiences, but I still have an awareness of what they are and what they can do, and have memories of my favorite experiences, obviously. But I still have this so when somebody describes their experience of what is happening to me, because I've had such a wide experience, I can accept it. You said you saw this or this happened or that, then you probably did. Do you know what I mean? Whereas then the limitation of the people who had a few experiences, that wasn't my experience, so therefore that's not the experience. You did it wrong. You had a bad trip. There's something wrong with you. Do you know what I mean? Or you went to the wrong shaman. Do you know what I mean? It misses it. Again, monoism pushes us down that you're allowed mushrooms, but you're only allowed to take this amount, and only if it increases your productivity at work, reduces your depression, anxiety. Guess what? They're not doing all of this to reduce our anxiety and depression so that we'll be less anxious or depressed. They're doing this to then continue this fucking late stage capitalism game of theirs, so that we don't suddenly look up and go, the reason I'm depressed is I can't afford this mortgage. You all promised me at this age I'd be married and I'd have 2 kids and I'd have a mortgage, and I'm still living at home in my basement and with my mum. What the fuck's happening? Do you know what I mean? So as long as we're stuck in that system, so they don't want us going in the field like we did, picking the mushrooms, one for me, one for the bag, one for me. Fuck it, go on then. One for me, one for the bag. And, going home, making a brew with your mates, and again, having that collective experience. It's then about maximization of Project You. And what is Project You? That is the most useful part of you for that system. We need a new Bohemian movement. We need a new, what was Ken Kesey in that generation called in America? In the 50s?
Stop it.
Brain. How do you have on the internet in some ways? Ken Kesey, Beatnik generation. So beatniks were basically, they got on trains. In fact, they traveled around in different cities. They poetry, art, explored drugs, music, poetry. Do you know what I mean? They were the conceptual generation prior to the 60s revolution. In fact, I suppose the precursor and arguably the creator of the 60s movement. But yeah, we need that. We need people to drop out, tune in, turn on, drop out, as Timothy Leary described in the 60s. We need the creative folk. We need the counterculture. We need people to cog up the machines. We need things to not work as designed, because everything is being laser focused into this one version of reality. And the black little mirror that we hold in our hands is what reflects it back to us and is lying to us. You can instinctively, all of that intrinsic intelligence and awareness, be like, this is wrong, but still just go about, oh. It's so powerful. It's so invasive. It's so all encompassing. And like I said, I personally think that nature is the last bastion of freedom that we have, the last resource and space that is beyond this. And what worries me now is not just with psychedelic mushrooms, is I like to go out and look at mushrooms. I never forage mushrooms. I don't break them, don't harm them. I walk delicately through the fucking woods. I'm not there, oh, snap this, just look at this haul that I got. How many of them are going to go in the bin? Do you eat them? Do you even know what species they are? Do you know how many animals you've just deprived of a complex protein? Do you know how many, the cycle of mycelium that you've broken up? Do you give a fuck? Do you care? No, because you've just done it for the gram. There's so many things. There's a Rumi quote that standing on the butterfly is not just good for the butterfly, it's good for you. We shouldn't be destroying what is before us, because it's destroying our love, our affinity and connection for those things before us. That again, what is the nature? It's the AI image of this fucking. I mean, again, look at like movies and TV shows now. It's all fantasy and sci-fi, and so it's so far removed. Because if they actually showed us the decimation of the reality before us, we'd be the Indian crying on the advert with all that trash behind us, the American cliched advert. We'd be heartbroken. We'd be devastated. And I think that again, another refuge is in these compounds, because they give us oneness. Whether it's MDMA at a festival or it's LSD thousands of miles from people, yet you can physically feel everyone you've ever loved. You can feel an affinity when you breathe, the lungs of the earth breathe with you. Do you know what I mean? You have these connective experiences that are beyond yourself, that are beyond the idea of individualism. You are the living bacteria of the earth. You are the sentient muck of life. You know what I mean? Those are the experiences I think are invaluable, and you can't find that with a little ooh. And again, all you're doing is you're kicking your depression down the road. Stop. Why are you depressed? As Jim Carrey says, depression is deep rest. You're requiring a deep rest. You are bored of playing the avatar, the character, the illusion. And that's what I figured. Even I do it all the time, and I'm trying to be as honest and as open as I can. But you still doesn't see my fucking bad days. on social media, even though I try and be honest with my mental health and with what is going on in my life, about 4% of it gets through, if that, because I'm not programmed for it. I wasn't told for it. It's not rewarding. I've been trained into that's the reward that I do. You know what I mean? Whereas now I think the next generation, it's all coming out, whereas they need that internal world. And again, that's found by blowing your fucking mind every now and then. Really like hand grenade consciousness to the walls and piecing it back together again. And then you get to make those decisions in like rebooting the programs on a computer and going, I'll uninstall that. I don't need that behavior anymore. Don't need that. Don't like that. I haven't used that in 20 years. We'll get rid of that. Whereas otherwise you just build up this shit and you just keep going. And yeah, you can microdose and you'll deal with your depression for a year or two. But have you dealt with your circumstance? Have you dealt with anything?
You're not really dealing with it. You're just masking it with a different drug, and you're making it sound acceptable because it's natural. And this it's natural, so it must be okay. No, you need to deal with we need to stop looking for those sticking plasters. We need to look for the healing, the actual vest that is needed to actually make the wound heal, instead of just sticking another plaster over it with something that is only going to work short term. The whole microdosing thing. Do you know actually microdosing at festivals? You know when you don't want to get absolutely off your tits, but you just want to be able to feel the music a little bit. It's quite nice.
Social anxiety as well.
But is it a long-term answer? Like any drug, it's not long-term answer. Nothing's a long-term answer. You changing's a long-term answer. You dealing with your issues.
There is yeah, entirely. Sorry, there is a caveat to that as well, though, in that, I think I spoke of last week with Bruce K. Alexander and Rat Park, and sort of the addiction experiment that led to our interpretation of cocaine is the most dangerous thing in the world, and they put a rat in a cage and give it cocaine water, and the 90% of them killed themselves on the cocaine water because there's no stimuli. Bruce K. Alexander came along, built up this Rat Park where they had like familial relations, sexual partners as well, food, things to explore, like tactile, sensory things. And few of them used sort of the drugs and go back to it for kind of when they've been rejected or kind of scolded by society. So again, there is a natural basis, I would say, just based off that one study, in collective groups for self kind of medication for rejection from the society. And that's not necessarily the fault of the individual if the society changes in a way that the individual didn't. To say, I don't know, kind of in a post or in the whatever world we're in now with Corona being there and us being here, it's changed kind of the way that people have a discourse and that people sort of connect. And so the groups don't form in the same way. So then people are alienated and isolated. So we don't want to sit around each other. We don't want to be together. But prior to that, you'd want to sort of be together. And now that you want to be with your own tribe and your own fucking people, and when there's less of your people because the algorithm removes your people, if you're a cannabis consumer, you look on the internet, depending on where you are, it's a lottery. You might not find any cannabis content at all. So there is no community, there is no culture. So you don't represent it. So you then fall back into that drugs pattern. And again, if you're lucky enough to then go through with the full experiences, and this is again not to judge anybody, but have quite a lot of high dose experiences in different ways, you can face the trauma of then deprogramming yourself in a way that goes, well, why am I seeking the approval of the group? There is always obviously a biological imperative in humans for connection, but we've almost been had that weaponized against us, that we're supposed to be connected with thousands of people all at once, all over the place. And it's no, you need to be connected to the one person in front of you right now. That is it. Whether that's a person sitting next to you on a train, the guy in the ticket stall, your colleague, the guy you're on the phone to, that's the connection that's necessary. And we need to reform society to be able to do that. So yes, we need to do the work, but I think once we then all discover that, wait a minute, say if everyone took a high dose tomorrow and then we all just wrote down kind of the societal changes, that would give us a pretty good barometer of what the fuck is wrong with society right now, why we feel lonely, why we feel exhausted. We're working 70 hours a week. I don't get to see my kids because of their ridiculous schooling schedule. I don't get to, do you know what I mean? And it's all of these disconnections and all of these issues, part in ourselves and part in society. And I think that psychedelics at high doses give us a glimpse of the overview. Whereas I think microdose just gives you an itch, a bit of I think there's, but that doesn't matter. I feel good. Do you know what I mean? And it kind of misses you getting beyond you.
Or it depends what you're wanting from it. Some people don't want more than that. And that is some people don't want that deeper connection. Some people just want that little tingle.
But
everyone is different, and I don't know. For me, I just keep going back to we need to switch the internet off. That's where that is. For me, that's what I see where the biggest problem is that the internet, if we switch that off, we would be forced to have to speak to one another.
But if we had a society that was structured so we got our dopamine and we got all of our neurochemicals and the good vibes and feelings inside from our day-to-day structured reality, if we built Rat Park in society, so what I'm alluding to now is that basically we currently are Rat 1 in the cage. We've got nothing else in the real world, and we've got no stimuli, analog stimuli, or the phone. And we're just destroying our brains and our life just on the phone in the cage. Whereas I feel that enough people taking psychedelics, we can see what Rat Park should look like. And then when we create Rat Park, it's the same thing I've argued that in a truly adjusted, healthy society that is constantly on the individual and collective level dealing with trauma, you could sell heroin on every street corner and you would have no problems with dependency. The problem is not the availability of the drug, is not the drugs. The drugs are neutral articles. In the same way of Bruce K. Alexander's Park with the cocaine in the water. They were available, they used them at certain rates and whatever else, but it was not problematic to the individuals that populated that place. Whereas we're now in a position of saying that all use is bad. So I think that we need that titration, yes, at different dose. But I also then, the analogy that came in my head was somebody walking around that stepped in dog shit. And they go, I can't smell anything, so it's not my... But other people have got to smell your shit. Do you know what I mean? We were talking about the respect of the commons before, that I feel the only obligation we have as humans is to deal with and lessen our trauma and negative impact on the world. It's the reason I'm a vegan. Get at me in the comments for whatever you want below. It's the reason I, secondhand threads. I only buy really secondhand books. I try to only buy secondhand books. Unfortunately, I'm a book addict. But for most of the resources, I, again, try and use and lessen my impact on the world or offset it in some way. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the only obligation that we have. And I think people just plastering and go and carrying all this shit and refusing to look at the trauma they're dragging through the world and the harm they're causing by reacting instead of being proactive in the world, that their ignorance is in some way what could be construed as being offensive to some, that they're choosing to go, it doesn't matter to me. In the same way that you hear people going, well, I'm going to, drive this fucking 4-liter engine. I'm going to do this because I'll be dead in a couple of years. That's wrong. I was going to say that's wrong think. That was very Orwellian of me. That is the wrong way to think about it, because the world is not just you. And like I said, in that egocentric, and if then we're saying, and I believe that microdosing fortifies your sense of self. It's not giving you the same oneness, connection, separation that then gives you this overview of like, oh, fuck. I mean, there's a term, is it Sonder? Which is basically the sudden realization that other people are as complex and as unique as you are. And I think that, again, at high dose, that gives us that realization that as much as you've ever thought of something obsessed, that how bad you felt, how good you felt, that's everyone else you bump into on the street. And again, once you get there, society just gets better. Do you know what I mean? You act better, or at least that's my theory and thesis based on my own discovery.
I just don't think psychedelics are the answer to everything. I just think that they're being used as this kind of sticking patch and the latest thing to make people think it'll cure them. I'm not saying that they don't have, they certainly do have profound effects, but I don't think they're the world's answer. I just don't think they're the answer to everything. I don't think that they will. My worry is that if everybody does it, I mean, the concept of the mouse came about in Silicon Valley due to psychedelics being done. What other things are going to come about through these if so many more people are doing them? What kind of inventions, what misuse of the information is going to be taken from that? How is that going to be misinterpreted or misused? And I think that's what kind of worries me with this whole movement of the lack of experience and the lack of respect and knowledge, humility, that is then imparted on someone. And I do worry about what will result from all of this. I don't want to talk about my experiences anymore, impart my knowledge that I have about these substances anymore, because of it being regurgitated and then took out of context. Well, no, not took out of context, be used as somebody else's experience.
Yeah.
Be an experience not being an experience not being needed done, an experience occurring that is individual to the person. And I'm just not sure if we are responsible enough. That is, the Western world is responsible enough not to use this in a manner for good. I'm just seeing very strange things at the moment that I don't know if it's an age thing where you start, as you say, you're starting to look down at that next generation going, no, you're not doing this right. What are you doing? And is it that? And it's that almost envy of that generation. It is that you want to be that age again. You want to feel that newness. You want to feel that naivety. You want to feel the freshness. You want to feel that kind of first feeling of it. Whereas now that doesn't happen to us. It still has effects, but it's not like it was the first time. It's not that kind of unique revelation. You don't feel that revelation anymore. Oh, well, I don't anyway.
Yeah, interesting. To go back to one of the things you said before about not sort of being the answer, I agree entirely. I don't think drugs are this is going to be a controversial take from my mouth. I don't think drugs are the answer, because there isn't one fucking question. Drugs are tools. They are neutral articles that can be used in the same way that you wear clothes every day. Yeah, there's a certain societal expectation, but also you want to keep warm. You know, you want to not get wet when it rains. You don't want to, reveal yourself to the world as you maneuver through life. But again, they are just tools. And I think the analogy, the image that was in my head was basically what we're doing is finding better and better ways to put people out when they're on fire, but then immediately throwing them back into a burning building. We are not addressing that the fucking house is on fire. We're just, this guy's on fire. Or to use like Desmond Tutu's quote of saying like, one day a man is found floating in a river and then people pull him out and go, "You all right? Shit, let's get him together." And then another man, and then another man, and another man. And at some point, you've got to go upriver and find out why the fuck the men are falling in the river. It's all well and good you getting them out. And you go, "Oh, you're cool, you're fine, you're fine." Yeah. Why is there so much trauma? Why is anxiety through the roof? Why is depression through the roof? Why are people struggling with, now Tourette's is on the rise again in an odd way. We've now got, what are they calling these days? A spike in unstable emotionality personality disorder, which has replaced BPD is the new acronym. Same with bipolar. A lot of these things are increasing, especially in the youth. Again, with them only ever knowing this sort of technology and this full world, this fake reality that they're kind of trapped within. And I guess for all people could say drug experience isn't real, either necessarily or is as fake. But in terms of what it could do for your neurology and for just shaking up that default mode network of in old speak, your ego, so that you step beyond who you think you are. You can, for a few hours, a few minutes, depending on the compound and substance, you can step into a neutral reality, like the Matrix loading screen when it first loads up and see when there's all the guns in that, and you can bring into that world where you want, and you can look at it without judgment. This is why they say that MDMA is such a powerful tool and was the love drug in California and actually helped many marriages stay together. There are couples that wanted to break up that could sign up for a certain thing, and they went and did counseling, and for the first time in 20 years spoke to each other, went home and made love like they haven't before, and said, this is it, this is who we are, that's who I fell in love with. And it's because you get lost in air quotes ego or default mode network. And most of us, if you look at psychology, this reckons about 80-90% of your day you are unconscious. You are not there. You are, I picked that up. Yeah, but you already learned how to pick that up 30 fucking years ago. There was no effort into it. You're writing. Oh, your hands learned that. You're walking. Yeah, your legs know that. You're cooking. Yeah, you did. Do you know what I mean? You're not there. Your consciousness, you've told yourself, you've set a task, and the body goes and does it, and then the brain goes off. Whereas again, these substances draw all together. And so then this tactile sense of something, like you said about that, the felt. So MDMA is wonderful for that, for bringing childlike sensation back to the world of just, this is the most beautiful, comfortable, and you feel it, like your hair rises, you get the goosebumps, and you have these real visceral connections to inanimate objects, to totems, to things that hold all of the innocence and all of the wonder of life. And for a few hours, that is everything. And I think there's a meme that says, the best raves in the world, you go to a rave and you find somebody with a dinosaur, and they don't ask why you're carrying a dinosaur. They ask his fucking name. And that's the community and the vibe we're missing. That's not what a festival is anymore. The people are not walking around with dinosaurs and with their felt, and they're not really getting into it. And you're like, oh, they're taking better doses. No, fuck off. No. There's safe dose is determinable by an individual, and that can be entirely titrated through experience and through repetition. But when you get to a certain threshold on any substance, really, you're just innocent. You're just someone else. And people want that, whether they realize it or not. The number of people I've met that are sober and have never taken drugs and met me on MDMA and think I'm the best thing in the fucking world. Do you know what I mean? You're just fun. You're just jovial. You're just happy, and they just fucking enjoy your company. Do you know what I mean? And I think that, these substances are just wonderful tools that can open ourselves up to ourselves. It's like Rumi says, if you're going to talk about sort of bad trips, you got to keep breaking your heart until it opens. And I think that's what bad trips are with psychedelics. You've got to keep wading through the trauma and the shit you carry around subconsciously until you can then step back into that kind of place of rapturous ecstasy. That sounds very spiritual. But do you know what I mean? Of kind of losing yourself. And it's a lot of people say, if MDMA, it doesn't do the same. It's like, no, you're trying to replicate your experience from the 80s. It's not going to happen. You need to accept what it is. Exactly. And you need to accept what it is. So prepare, take the thing, and then go with it. As Jim Carrey in that movie is, just say yes, man. Just roll with it. Obviously with your own safety and obviously your own fucking laws and everything else in mind to a lesser and certain degree. I obviously don't want to encourage anyone to break the law beyond... well, actually, I will encourage you to take substances. We'll see what happens on YouTube with that one. But yeah, you be free. Do whatever the fuck you want in life. You know what I mean? You're entitled to it as far as I'm concerned. It's no different than if you want to go and spend your money on caviar. I got no preference to it. Do you know what I mean?
Look, your cup of tea? I'm sorry, Doc. I need to go to bed.
Yeah. All right. It's all right. There's some crucial points in here, so you know what it is. I do want to start a standalone series of basically one question, one guest, and explore one topic. So
yeah,
there is a topic I'd quite like to talk to you about, which we did speak of in the preamble, that I think would be perfect for that. So yeah, I'll let you go to bed then, because it is quite late at night. So thank you for staying up with us and talking to myself and all of my wonderful listeners out there.
Not a problem, Doc. Not a problem. As I say, we'll not try and do one at this time of night again. I think we have to go for the morning one. We're a bit more...
Yeah, we're both more battling. Yeah, we're both very jovial and bubbly in the morning. So I think, we'll definitely book it in for the next one.
Oh, definitely. Well, you know me, I have to be in bed by, 10:30.
The joys of growing older. Saying that, I was in bed the other night at 9 o'clock reading a book, and I couldn't have been fucking happier.
Good, keep doing it. It is not, because it's your safe place, and it's reading before bed, not using. I think they're going to hate us, the phone companies and things, by the time because all we've done is basically talked about the fact that phone is the root of all evil. You described it as a black mirror, and I think it is where the issues lie.
Yeah.
We will.
Sorry, I was just before, because I could have jumped straight into that. I'm like, put a pin in this. It's been a pleasure. You will no doubt join the Four Timers Club before too long, I'm sure. But yeah, thank you for jumping in the hot seat. I've really enjoyed this, and I think we covered some good topics and points amongst all of the other things the people will find interesting. So thank you very much for your time, and I shall let you get off to bed.
No problems, Dad. You take care. I'll speak to you soon.
All right, it's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye. For the record, it's 11 o'clock at night, folks. I hope you enjoyed this late night edition. I will be recording in the AM for the next few episodes, so I'll be a bit more awake, less hyper at the start, probably less high, and that's a good or a bad thing. allegedly. I'm not saying that I'm high. Who knows? These clove cigarettes do have an impact in so much way. But yeah, folks, if you enjoyed this episode, and if you enjoyed any of the conversation you saw there with Callie Seaman, we'll be including some links below where you can keep up with her on social media and keep an eye out on what she's up to. Like I said, she's very prominently featured in a lot of the sort of press and media produced here in the UK. Great scientist and wonderful human being. I do enjoy my chats with Callie. So yeah, check that out. If you enjoyed this, please do check us out on patreon.com/Simpa Life, where for less than a pint or a cup of coffee, you can help me keep the many lights on in for this project. And check us out on all social media platforms. Like, share, subscribe. Do check us out on Rumble. I'm slowly moving bits over there as well. Not quite sure how the platform works. I think I've been smart enough to retain the copyright and the licensing for the videos. But yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if I can get away from the limitations of YouTube and some of the other more dominant corporate platforms that I'm kind of forced to use at the minute for this little project. But yeah, folks, do you have a wonderful week? We'll be back next week with a guest and good. Right, peace and love.